And this is your fault, Carly. This is, you see this right here. That is why I do this. Okay? That's one of these things has led directly to the other. Okay?
I thought you were going to say you were doing that because you can't get my Chimera song stuck out of your head. It's just like...
So there's this amazing therapy called EMDR, eye movement, something or other, repetition, EMDR, eye movement, direction, something where you have to think of the traumatic event and they shine different lights and you look at them. And I don't know why it works, but for some reason it helps you to kind of de-traumatize. Well, my local practitioner can retire now because of the amount of money that I have given to them trying to get that song out of my head.
That actually makes me so proud to know that I might push you to the brink of actual like mental breakdown.
No. Let's be clear. No, you're giving yourself too much credit. I was already on the brink. You're going to push me over the edge.
The straw that broke the camel's back. Anyway, it's here.
There it is, that one. What do you got?
It's an actual book with words and pictures and lots of words and more pictures.
So sorry, an actual book with words and pictures. Those are the options.
Do you not remember you giving me shit for making a picture book?
For the purpose of containing either words or pictures or some combination of the two.
Do you not remember?
Those are all the options.
A few months ago, you said this book doesn't count because it's mostly pictures. Now I have a book that's full of all of the words.
Okay. Pick that up again. Come on, Carly. You want to do this? Pick it up again. Open just the front cover.
It?
No. Okay, sorry. One more. Yeah. You've done something tricky because when you were flicking through it, I saw an awful lot of empty pages. When you flicked through it that first time. There, that one. Yeah. Now show me the last page.
That's because Amazon print very weirdly, to be honest.
Just full of empty pages. See, I rest my case. It's just full of from the front cover to the back. It is just empty pages everywhere. I rest my case.
No, this is one gripe I have with Amazon publishing. It's anyway, enough about that. My thesis is done. You can buy it as a book, and I'm going to put it right here.
Well, as we discussed last week, that's what the page with the welcome to country should have said. This page was intentionally left blank.
I should have done that. Can you imagine?
We need a libertarian colouring book, says Sen09. Is that just one that has no lines because you can't tell me what to do?
Yeah, libertarians, it's just blank pages.
Just blank pages. Do what you want.
Oh, dear. Well...
Amanda Rose bringing the insults tonight. Topher sounding like mainstream. Amanda, how could you? I thought we were friends.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I love that you're an activated almond tonight.
I am an activated almond tonight. I'm very activated. I tell you, the stories we have tonight are so dumb. Like across the board, wall to wall, dumbness has taken over the planet.
Yeah. Do you know what? Can I start with a story? And it's a fun story, but it's fun for two reasons. And I tell you the story not because I want to keep going on about masters and making you all alcoholics again, but
here we go.
Okay. I was on Instagram and there's this page I follow called Business of Fashion, which is literally about the business of the fashion industry, right? So it's all financial stuff and whatever. Anyway, this very well-known fashion photographer did an article with them saying that he's excited for AI. AI is amazing. And you can imagine the comments, right? The comments were just meltdown. Now, the people who work in the fashion industry are no different to the Democrats, no different to the progressive lefties. They're all the same people. And it wasn't just like, oh, I disagree. It was like, it's the end of humanity. This is literally the end of the world. Like artists are starving, like all of these crazy emotional expletives. Anyway, and I wrote, I'm actually really excited for AI. And as a working photographer, like I see a lot of opportunities, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kid you not. Like, I have to read it out verbatim. This chick writes on there going, maybe speak to someone in the industry before you write such a tone-deaf comment. You sound uneducated. Do your research. Like, her words were, do your research.
Yeah.
Guys, can you imagine? I was like, this is why I did it. This is the moment I was waiting for. So I said, when you say research, does a master's degree qualify? 18 months extensive research into AI? Right? I was like, does that qualify me to have an opinion? And she's like, oh, evidently you haven't done your research and spoken to any working industry professionals because you're tone deaf, whatever else she said. And I was like, does 20 years in the industry and working as a commercial photographer qualify me to have an opinion in your eyes? And she, like, when I say meltdown, this woman had like an unhinged reaction to the fact that I qualified for her terms, right? Do your research.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you mean? No, you haven't done the right research, whatever that means. Right. Anyway, it was.
You haven't arrived at the right conclusion.
Correct. And it was such a beautiful moment, right? Because it's like, do your research. I just did. Oh, no, not that research. No. Do more research.
Yeah.
I did. And I just thought to myself, this is who we're arguing with. It doesn't matter whether it's like AI, climate change, feminism, trans rights. These people will not accept that you could have possibly read the same source material as them and come to a different conclusion. There is no other conclusion in their eyes.
No.
And it's one of those moments, this whole thing transpired and G's like, why are you wasting your time? I was like, I find this so fascinating. In the end, she blocked me, right? So I wrote a comment. She responded to my comment, got herself into a tears, and the only way out was to block me.
Yeah, end the conversation, pretend it never happened.
What is this? Yeah. That's who we're up against. People are fundamentally fucking retarded. They are. These
people vote. Yeah, these people vote, unfortunately, and it is that Dunning-Kruger effect. They have a tiny little bit of knowledge and an enormous amount of confidence. And when they come up against someone like yourself, whose confidence is actually rooted in something more than a little bit of knowledge, you've gone through that whole valley of self-doubt, and you've come out the other side. In my case, 16 years as a political commentator. In your case, 20 years in business, in photography, now with a master's degree under your belt. Our opinions weren't formed based on the last thing we read on Instagram. It just doesn't work that way for us anymore.
No, and do you know what? Like, masters and all that shit aside, I was just thinking about this, that, I've said this before about getting back into postgraduate study and taking back these institutions. There is so much source material out there that's not necessarily from the typical research labs, right? Like, you would know this with climate change. Yes, if you go to the CSIRO or if you go to the NHS or whatever it is, like, yes, you're going to see the same stuff. But there are plenty of independent bodies doing really, really good research. And for whatever reason, like, people just turn their blind eye to that. There's an accepted level of research and it's an accepted truth. And I don't know how you fix that. I actually don't know how you fix that.
Well, we've regressed back to an age of priests and oracles where, there was a period where the common man couldn't read. And even if they could, the printing press wasn't a thing. So it wasn't easy to get your hands on something to read. Then oftentimes things like the Bible were only ever written in Latin. They weren't actually written in the common man's language. And of course, Gutenberg and the printing press and all of that changed. And then ultimately the King James translation of the Bible into kind of common man's English as it was back then really proliferated that. And that the reformation of the church wasn't possible without information and knowledge being in the hands of the common man. It was that journey then led to the Reformation, and a lot of the, in my opinion, this is going to activate some people's almonds, the heresies of the Roman Catholic Church of the time were called out by ordinary people who got their hands on knowledge and information. And what we're watching is a regression now, where the common man is no longer allowed to have their own opinion. You have to be able to hark back to the oracle, the priest, the prophet who said the certain thing. You're only allowed to have one of the opinions that is made available to you by being stated by one of the available oracles. And if your opinion falls outside of that, well, now you're a heretic. And I'm using religious language deliberately because this is a religious observance. It has become a new state-sponsored religion. And how dare you be a heretic and think that you can decide for yourself what you believe about God or the climate or, environmentalism or politics or wokeness or anything else? How dare you come up with your own opinion? You're not qualified. We really are genuinely regressing.
It's gatekeeping, right? Like you want to gatekeep these institutions to the people that will be compliant and will push your ideology, which is exactly what they did in academia, right? With the tertiary education system. You go in there, they give you their doctrine, you accept it and swallow it, and then you go out to the big world and you basically go and prophesize. What I've done is infiltrate. And, I had someone say to me the other day, like, Carly, I think you went a little bit overboard with your exhibition. Like you went above and beyond. I was like, no, this was deliberate. One, I'm competitive, right? Like I'm super competitive. I had to be the best. Two, that makes you undeniable because I know that there's going to be pushback with, what I talk about. But they can't push back on, oh, it wasn't good or she didn't work hard enough or do you know what I mean? The only thing that they can argue about is what I wrote, which is where you need to get them, right? Because that's the key politicians' way of sort of getting out of any tough questioning. They sort of circle around it and they dance around it. They never actually answer the question. If you take away all of those different possible avenues that they can criticize you on and what's left is your theory, then it makes them like they can't argue with that.
Yeah, they're actually having to address they have to actually address the issue, the topic at hand. Now, Richie Goddard says, RIP yesterday to the golden tonsil, John Lawsy Laws, only 1 year after he retired. Thanks for this seed he planted. Now, it's a really interesting comment, a year after he retired. One of the deadliest things, especially I think for men, but I do believe it is for both, one of the deadliest things you can do is retire. And when I say that, what I mean is, there are people that retire and get busier, and there are people that retire and then just everything stops because their life was their work. And for those people, the life expectancy post-retirement is not long. It's only about a year or 18 months. It's really not long. Now, in the case of John Laws, he's a bit of a different case. He worked later into his life, and he had a good innings. He lived a good long life. So I'm not suggesting that necessarily in his case, but there is this correlation where particularly people that lived and breathed their work, the minute that stops, that's the beginning of death. It's quite a remarkable thing. Yeah.
How old was he, John Laws?
I want to say 88, but I'm gonna look it up because otherwise I'm gonna make a fool out of myself. John Laws, born in 1935. Oh, he was 90. Yeah, okay, so he was a couple of years older than I thought. Yeah.
And he only retired last year, so he worked up until like literally his twilight
89.
years.
Yeah, 89,
That's remarkable. Do you know what? Yeah. It would have been the lack of routine, the lack of getting up and having an objective, somewhere to go, something to do. It's really sad.
Yeah. I mean, it could have just been the fact that he was 90. Like, let's be honest, that's a great innings. But yes, I none of that helps. And there's that, we've talked about this before, that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And as we age in direct proportion to the degree to which we get comfortable. And what a lot of people do is they retire for the purpose of going and getting comfortable. And that has a very, very negative effect on a lot of people. Now, Found Hope says, AI is way overhyped and overvalued. I was talking with my sister and said as much a few weeks ago. She listened to my points. She sold her position in NVIDIA. A week later, it dropped 20%. Dangerous conversation. I mean, I tip my hat to you if you want to be trying to make stock market predictions amongst family. That's been known to backfire pretty badly, but I'm glad in your case it has worked out well. But then again, if NVIDIA doubles in value in the next 12 months, you might be having a slightly different conversation with her next Christmas. I'm just saying.
I will say this because I know Found Hope's a fan of AI, and that's fine. Like, you cannot be a fan of it. But what I will say is we are at the infancy of AI, right? Like, there's going to be the gimmicky things. I said this on my Instagram stories last night. There's always going to be the gimmick things. And like, you think back to the time when we got the internet into our own homes, right? Like personal computing. And you had really like rudimentary programs like Microsoft Encarta or Publisher and things like that. They paved the way for your Adobe Photoshop. So they paved the way for, online news channels and things like that. But in the beginning, it was kind of cute. It was very kitsch. You know, AOL Messenger and all that sort of stuff gave way for MSN, which now gave way to Facebook, right?
Yeah.
AI has only scratched the surface. And in the 18 months that I studied it, watching how quickly it changed and how quickly there's different iterations of the same model popping out and all these people putting money behind it. I think the AI that everyone thinks it is, like, you know, ChatGPT and image gen, like that's the gimmick part of it. That's not the real AI.
I think the other mistake that people make with technology is that they think it will grow through its infancy into a pure maturity, and lose all of that infancy. And it doesn't. It never does, because there's always areas that are being pushed and being progressed. And also the humans using these technologies are still very much depraved, infantile beings. It is no surprise to anybody that the number one purpose of the internet, now that we've had it for 20 plus years, is still pornography. Right. Okay. It was one of the first things that we did with the internet, and it's one of the things we continue. It takes up more bandwidth than any other single market sector.
And porn. They're the two things that AI will blossom in.
And AI will continue to be used for infantile purposes. It will be used so that people can have fake AI girlfriends. It will be used so that people can do scams on each other and do more advanced ways of tricking and scamming and making money. All of those things will be true, and they'll continue to be true. It's not going to go through that and leave that behind. I was just talking with my mum earlier today, and she's been sucked in by a few fake news things over the years and this and that. And, she tries to get wiser about it. And we were just talking yesterday because she got sucked in by something recently. And, it wasn't a big deal. It was a fake news story that she sent to me. And I looked at it for about 30 seconds and went, my spider senses are tingling. A little tiny bit of research and very quickly demonstrated this was just made up for clicks. And, she doesn't often get caught out anymore, but she got caught out by this one. People's awareness of these things improves. The audience education sort of happens automatically as people learn from experience. But ultimately, we are still human and we are still vulnerable. So all of that side of AI will never go away. But the other side is that it's going to be driving forward the rate at which, there was a comment here by Phonic Photon. AI is just a quicker aggregator of words, basically a quicker search engine. At its most foundational level, that's true. But what gets built on top of that, what can be done with that, is phenomenal. In the end, a microprocessor is just a counting machine. At a foundational level, it's just a machine for counting. But what's being done with that counting is completely mind-blowing and doesn't look like counting at all. The same is going to be true with AI. I'm really excited for it because the productivity side of AI is phenomenal. We've talked a lot about that. I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole again. But there was a comment that you brought up just a second ago, someone saying, I'm an artist and I have no idea how to use AI. The gap between people who know how to use the internet and people who don't is massive. The gap between people who know how to use AI and who don't is going to be bigger. This is a really, really important thing. We need to get through our heads that AI is to our generation like a smartphone was to your grandparents, right? It's going to seem alien and uncomfortable. We're going to remember the world before AI. We're probably going to romanticize that world and reminisce about that. Oh, wasn't the world a better place? Our kids and our grandkids will grow up bathed in the stuff. And to not try and keep up is going to mean a very, very big gap between what you can do, the commerce that you can engage in, the opportunities that you have, etc. AI is not something that you want to just ignore.
Yeah. And look, I'll add my 2 cents in. I think the way people perceive AI is based on mainstream media giving out, it's generated by AI. You wish, sloth. Unfortunately for the world, I am real and I am here to stay for now.
Sloth, she's not your girlfriend. You're getting her confused.
No, so the way I look at AI, particularly with artists, so Lynette, this is for you and any other artists or creatives in the chat. When I hear people say to me, AI is the death of creativity or it's the death of artists, it's sending artists broke, the first thing I'll say to you is it's just another tool. And if you are taking the first iteration of AI, like you type in a prompt and you get an image and you go, oh, that's my image, then you're no different to every crappy artist that's existed before. And what I mean by that is Da Vinci also had the same paintbrush and paints as every other artist that was around in Italy or France at the time, right? But the key with Da Vinci is He studied things at such a level that no one else had the same persistence as him. And when he started painting, he did underpainting, and then he overpainted, and he corrected the layers that go into like the Mona Lisa or Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. It's layers and layers and layers. It's iterations, if you will. So with AI, prompting requires iteration after iteration, and then also injecting your own thoughts and voice and vision. And you know, the other thing that people say when it comes to AI and art is that it's copying, right? Like it's plagiarism. Well, it's no different to the data set that you have accumulated in your own mind because of your observations of the world at large. So from you being a small child up until who you are today, what you looked at, what you listened to, what you've engaged with, your brain has stored that to some degree in your brain. And every time you put pen to paper to either write or to draw or to be artistic in any way, you're recalling that information. It's coming out in its own way. That's exactly what AI does. It just does it with far more information and a lot quicker than humans can. So it's exactly the same concept. And I heard someone the other day saying like, oh, you know, AI is going to kill your photography career, Carly. And I said, no, it won't. It's going to make me absolutely untouchable. Because whilst everyone else is over here flapping their gums going AI, 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 I've already had people reach out to me going, Carly, how can I do this? Can we do this? How can we, like, already people are turning to me going, shit, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
That's an incredible commerce opportunity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that opportunity is, you know, the world has never had more opportunity than what it does right now. But also the world has never had more competition than what it does right now. Yeah. Every single one of us is now competing on a global stage. It's certainly anyone who's doing anything that can be delivered remotely. We are competing on a global stage, in a global marketplace. So the opportunity is massive. The competition is massive. You need to find a niche and get creative and do it soon, because this is an ecosystem and a marketplace that is just going to take off.
Just have a dabble. It's, you know, and like I said, I think there's a lot of gimmicky stuff. Like whenever we see the memes and the silly AI generated videos, that's the baby stuff. Like that stuff will be like cat videos on the early days of the internet.
All right. CJ Westman can't stick with us tonight, but he says, I can't watch live tonight, but wanted to paraphrase something I heard on Tom Woods today. The world needs Ron Paul, but we deserve Donald Trump. Yeah, that's probably not bad, actually. Have a good show tonight, guys. Thanks, CJ. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now, last thing on AI before we move on, James Bennett's LLMs, large learning models, for those that aren't familiar with the lingo, have arguably been so successful because Google gained an effective monopoly on search engines and suppressed non-approved use of that technology. I would say that there is a qualitative leap in what AI and what LLMs do versus what Google did as well. Probably that helped with the breakaway. That probably helped to create that gap a little bit. But technologically speaking, there is a vast gulf between what Google does as a search engine and what AI does.
Yeah. Quick question for the chat. Why are people talking about my shoulders? Why have I got broad shoulders? Should I be offended? I've missed it. I don't know what's going on. I just saw something like Carlz has broad shoulders. What? Anyway.
Someone's probably said something mean.
Probably. God, do you want to start with the stories? Do you want me to start with the stories? We've got a few. They get dumber and dumber.
Do we do good news on a Monday? I can't remember.
We don't, but we can. Like I don't know if you know this, but we run the show. So
what? Okay, so I got a really cool email. So I did a video earlier in the week about how the meatheads in Canberra are talking about reducing the speed limit on unsigned roads down to 70 kilometers an hour. Now, these are people who think, unsigned roads, they're just the ones in the middle of nowhere. Well, yes, they are the ones in the middle of nowhere, but actually they make up 2/3 of our road when you measure just by kilometers traveled. 860,000 kilometers of road qualifies as this unsigned road. The default speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour at the moment. And there's talk in Canberra about reducing that down to 70 and what have you. I did a video about that, basically saying this is a city solution to a country problem. This is the kind of thing that people come up with when they take public transport to work every day or ride their bicycle. Anyway, I put a link in saying, hey, this is where you can give them your feedback, because they had an inquiry period that closed today. And someone sent through to me the letter that they wrote as their submission into this particular thing. And they sent that through to me. They gave me permission to read it. And I just thought they've done a really good job with it. It's not particularly long. It's one page. And they've done a good job. But it also really does serve to remind us all, not that our viewers necessarily need reminding, because each of you live a very different life as well. But, you know, for me, having grown up in the city, I think I'm more aware of country living and remote living than your average city slicker is because of the work that I do. but it's still nice to kind of get this slap in the face reminder of just what life really is like for other people that live in our country. Now, for perspective, he says to me, we have a small sheep property of 110,000 hectares. Okay. So when someone's telling you that it's small and it's 110,000 hectares, they live remote. This is what they said. Comment on federal proposal to reduce country road speed limits to 80 kilometers per hour for bitumen and 70 kilometers per hour for gravel. We live 360 kilometers west of Port Augusta, with the major part of the road being a gravel secondary road. This represents a 4-hour trip both ways, which we do quite regularly in a day, as Port Augusta is our main business center. By introducing a 70 kilometer per hour limit for the 290 kilometer gravel section, this is likely to add around another 2 hours to the round trip. The net effect to us will include increased travel time and cost, as we will need to stay overnight in Port Augusta. Traveling after daylight hours incurs significant additional risk from wildlife and extended travel times as a result. Increased freight costs in and out. So these guys are producers. So that goes onto our food, by the way. So everyone else won't realize it. They'll go, oh, food's expensive all of a sudden. Well, actually, it's the fact that the truck going in to collect the cattle or sheep or what have you now has to travel slower. There's more hours, there's more costs. This will also add significantly to issues around animal welfare, where stock are standing in trucks for extended periods from the increased travel time, in addition to any mandatory driver rest periods as a result of those increased travel times. We are unaware of any major or fatal accidents in our area in recent times. Our road conditions here, both local shires and in the unincorporated area, are generally pretty good. In our view, South Australia is doing a reasonable job of maintaining our local secondary roads. This proposal makes no sense without further analysis and an understanding of the statistics and actual accident data before making any blanket reduction to speed limits. This includes accident locations, road types, sealed gravel, width, conditions, etc., single or multiple vehicles, vehicle type, driver background experience, fitness to drive, etc. This blanket reduction of the speed limit treats the symptoms rather than addressing the root causes. We should focus on the accident types and hotspots as a start. Key road maintenance requirements, as well as working to address overall driver education, awareness, and skills, including a significant improvement to driver training. This proposal will have a direct negative impact on our viability as a business, freight costs, and livestock condition following transport, as well as impacting our day-to-day travel times when headed away or back to the property. And I just thought, you know what, that is a submission that wouldn't have gone in to this inquiry were it not for the video that I put out. And it's just kind of, will that make a difference? I don't know. But it has gone in. It's happened now. And I just thought, that's just a really nice thing to be able to go, hey, that happened, and I was a catalyst for making that happen, and well done to them for taking the time and writing a really good submission.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I actually am seeing that a lot now, and I've got to be mindful, because every now and then, particularly if I'm a bit grumpy, I'm like, oh, nice of you to join. And then the other part of me is like, be grateful they are joining, right? I'm seeing a lot of people starting to get quite vocal, and I've got some examples that we'll talk through today of people just going, I'm not playing this game with you anymore. I'm just going to say, they're not necessarily being combative or overly assertive. They're simply going, stop. So it's good.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hang on. Targetazzi, Stortle, are they actually doing competitive stages this year? I thought they'd stop doing that. I couldn't get permission and all that kind of crap. I'll keep an eye out in the comments. Let me know if they're actually doing competitive stages. All right, Carly, take it away. What are we doing?
All right. Let's talk about this one, because this is wild. I sent you this, but it ended up being a way bigger news story than I expected it to be. Because I think, okay, so before I share it, I just said before about how people are starting to like arc up a bit, right? They're not necessarily going full ham. My broad shoulders. Okay, sorry. I don't know what you want me to do about it. So this is one of those things that like seems really silly on paper, but this is the catalyst to make people go, enough, right? So we saw this in COVID when it came to the children's playgrounds. Like, of all the things that happened, that was the one that broke the camel's back. So this is the big thing in Victoria. This is what has got everyone really upset. And I mean, rightfully so, right? So Nana Goon, for those who aren't familiar with Victoria, it's out towards Gippsland Way. It's a freeway that takes you out, as far east as you sort of want to go. Nana Goon's like hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes from Melbourne.
Yeah, hour and 20, hour and a half. Yeah.
Is it technically part of the Monash? Is that what that is? That road? Technically the Monash?
So the Monash goes all the way out there. So that does look like that's going to be the Monash.
Oh, Princess Highway. Here we go. Sorry.
Yeah,
Princess Highway.
Yeah, Princess Highway. Looks like car after car has just gone ripping through that pothole, and the tow trucks are having a good day.
A field day, and it's bloody pouring rain. So it says more than 20 vehicles. I heard 28. Jackie Felgate posted this originally. So this is the pothole. Like, that'll do it.
You'd never see it in the rain. So keep in mind, it was raining heavily. So that's going to be completely full of water, and the whole road is going to be reflective. The whole road has a surface of water on it. You are never going to spot that before you hit it. Imagine a motorcyclist.
Oh, they'd be under a truck for sure.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying. But I mean, I told you the story of G hitting his, and you hit one too. Carly's internet's choppy. It shouldn't be. It's as fast as the internet speed gets. It's fiber to the house, guys. I can't do much better than that.
It's the NBN, guys. Quit whinging. Fake news. We have the best internet in the world.
I don't know what else I can do. We pay for the most expensive internet. Like, I can't get better than this. So, you know, like, G hit a pothole at 60k an hour, and it blew out the side of his tire. You hit it. It blew out the side of your tire. Like, what? Both of you guys have relatively bigger cars. What's going to happen when, like, a little Holden Barina hits that thing? Like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, mine is, to be fair, mine's just a sedan with a sedan sidewall, so it's not that surprising. But it is just incredible to me that we pay as much as we do, and the whole social contract, right? Now, I don't agree with the social contract to begin with. I think it's a flawed theory. Thank you for saying what I was thinking, G. I appreciate it.
My boyfriend never wants to get laid again, apparently.
I think she's breaking up with you over the internet, mate. Classy move, Carlz. So it's gone. I've lost my train of thought completely.
I derailed you, didn't I? Okay, yeah. These potholes, this is getting bad. Like, I mean, they're everywhere.
Social contract, the social contract, which I don't think is a thing, but you know, political theorists love to talk about the social contract. The social contract is we do what we're told, and we get a whole bunch of stuff in return. We pay the taxes, we follow the rules, we fit in with all the norms and the rules as they get written by the politicians. And because we do all of that and we're good little boys and girls, they look after the roads. That's one of the big core promises. Defense force, well, it's useless. We barely have one. Roads, completely crumbling and falling apart. In a socialist country like Australia, you'll get a social safety net. How's it working out being on the pension or being on JobKeeper and so forth? How's that safety net working out for you? You'll get free healthcare if you can get in with the ramping and the ambulance issues and so forth. You'll get an education system. By the time you come out of it, you won't know what gender you are, but you'll definitely know that you're a second-class citizen unless you're Aboriginal. This is the social contract. This is the stuff that justifies us obeying the rules and paying our taxes and doing all that stuff. That pothole right there is emblematic of the entire state of Victoria, and the rest of Australia. Don't get too smug because you're not as far behind as you think you are.
No. And look, I mean, these potholes are everywhere. It's so bad. And it's getting to a point where there's so many issues with Victoria that the government can't run anymore. Like, if they dodge the youth crime thing, then they're facing this pothole crisis, and then they're facing another thing. There's so many things happening simultaneously. And I've used the analogy of, like, the little grass fires before. This is all starting to come together, and it's really starting to surround the government. I don't know how they get away from these ones. So basically the local council, which I'm not too sure what council it is, somewhere in Gippsland, I imagine, is basically absolving themselves. It's not their fault, apparently. And I actually don't know what the jurisdiction is. Is this state or is this local?
Jurisdictionally, they're correct. So their jurisdiction finishes at the gutter. The roads are a state issue, and then some roads are actually a federal issue. Now, I don't think that this would be a federal road, but then again, it is the main highway out to that end of Victoria, and it does link up with New South Wales. So I actually can't speak definitively. It might actually be a federal road. I mean, the road where I hit a pothole, it blew a chunk that big out of the sidewall of my tire. That was the Hume Freeway. Now, the saving grace there was that those tires were almost cactus. They needed to get changed anyway, and so I didn't lose much money in the sense of, brand new tire, blow the sidewall. That sucks, right? That's not what happened in my case. But it could happen at any time. That was just dumb luck that it, and also My dad was driving. He didn't even realize that it had blown to start with. He's getting on a little bit. He's into his 70s or 80s or 90s. I don't know. He might be 160. I'm not quite sure. But he's getting on a little bit, and he didn't realize that the tire had blown to start with. I had to tell him to pull over. And you kind of go, well, that was lucky. We were in it's only a sedan, but it's a full-size sedan. If you're in a motorbike, or if you're in a really small car, or if you've got the kind of car that's going to react a lot more to suddenly one tire being flat, that car just kind of kept on tracking. But there are other cars that will pull
wet too.
Yeah. There are some cars that will pull really heavy. If you blow a tire, that car's going to be veering off the road on you before you know it. So it could go a long way wrong. And obviously in this case, we're lucky no one was injured, but 20 plus cars in a single pothole at the one time. Come on.
Yeah, it's the perfect analogy for Victoria. That's just what it is.
It really is.
And it's annoying that this story is the thing that got everyone talking, because like I said, now when you go into the comment threads, it's rare to find people supporting the government. The only time I see people actually still championing Jacinda is on ABC articles. And we'll get to that in a second, because I've got another one that's just like going to boil your blood. Hang on. I do have to touch on this, because I was going to be smug and then I saw this. So now I'm going to be smug. I had a bolt in my front wheel that's like this big for 3 weeks. And the Jeep's just like, whatever. I don't
Carly,
care.
I told you this is why I drink. Okay, this is your fault. You're doing this to me. Okay, this is all you.
My Jeep would see that pothole and go. Literally, there's a bolt this big in the bloody wheel, and it's fine. I'm like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There is a more important issue in the comments that you clearly haven't seen. Wayne E is throwing shade at your mate.
What do you say?
This is going to start something. I'm sorry in advance, guys. This is going to be a problem. Wayne, you're on your own, buddy. I'm not coming in to fight for you. Australia's internet speed is 80th in the world. Down with El Salvador and Kazakhstan. I'm out.
Hey, man. Nayab was busy solving the country being the homicide capital of the world. I think he deserves a pass. What's Australia's excuse? Someone explain that to me. Just quickly, I remember being in Egypt this was like 2008, I think I was there. And the internet in Egypt in 2008 was far superior than what we had in Australia at the time. And I remember thinking, like, isn't Egypt technically like somewhere like on the cusp of being a third world country? Somewhere there. Is there a second world country? I don't know. But either way, nowhere near as advanced as the West. And we like to think we're advanced. And I remember coming back to Australia in 2008 and going, wow, our internet here is so bad. It's 2025 and we're the 80th in the world. And we're like, what, the 5th richest country in the world? Explain this to me. Help me understand it, because I don't.
Yeah, and I will defend it on this basis. The tyranny of distance is a thing. Australia being relatively sparsely populated does add a layer of challenge, but not nearly enough to justify this. We are such a wealthy country. The actual reason is what we talked about before, the cost of government, and the fact that because of the way our country operates and the amount of regulation and red tape, it costs so much to do anything. Yeah. So even doing something basic like putting in internet infrastructure costs infinitely more than what it ever should.
I wanted to contrast this with something I saw on socials yesterday, and I should have saved it, but I didn't. So it was a girl who was sharing. It was on TikTok of all places. Why is G the safest? Because I got the Jeep. I know, he's lucky.
Yeah, maybe, or because you broke up with him, so he's now out of danger. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure how that comment fit in.
I would never. Upgrade your Mac to a Commodore 64.
Found hope. Comment of the night.
Do you know what? G did buy himself a fancy new PC, and I don't care that it's a PC, but I do like that inside. You can see inside it. You can see all the fans and all the pretty colors. I want that. Apple doesn't have that. That's the only thing that I was like, that's pretty. What's this comment? Using AI to help her as a template. My wife has painted a portrait of me for my birthday, and it looks amazing. One would have thought she's been painting it for years. 100%, Ricky. So
I read that to mean used AI to kind of create the starting image, and then Ricky's wife painted that. So it's not literally an AI generated image. It is her hand painting an image, but she's been given the image to work off by AI. That's pretty cool. That's a really good use of it, actually.
What AI is actually doing is stopping the steepness of that learning curve. Like, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a real world example. I'm building your website right now, right? And I'm building it on a platform.
Apparently, I mean, I still haven't seen any evidence, but I mean, you know, it's okay. Christmas is coming. It's fine. You know, whatever.
And the platform I chose is Webflow, because I wanted something that looked really like whiz bang and cool and clever, but also relatively
amazing.
Yeah, and relatively simple for us in the back end to use. And anyway, so I haven't used this platform before, and every now and then I just get stumped, and I'm like, where's the thing? How do I do that? And because I don't have, like, there's not a lot of like YouTube videos about it, I sort of sit there and go, shit, and I'm clicking around trying to find it. Now, when I do that and I'm clicking around and like, that could take me half an hour to maybe find the thing. Or what I've been doing is I screenshot where I'm at, I put it into ChatGPT and I say, hey, I'm trying to find this. Can you navigate where to go? And then ChatGPT is like, yep, cool. Go here, click that, and then click this. And then tell me when you're there. So I go there amazing. And then I screenshot the next bit and I go, all right, I'm in this screen now. How do I move this over here? And what does this mean? And so rather than me wasting hours clicking around, ChatGPT is basically teaching me how to use this thing as I problem solve my way through it. Like, it's phenomenal.
It's teaching you like a tutor where you can ask questions. So I remember I started using Adobe Premiere back in, I think it was 3.1, one of the really early versions. And it came with a manual that was this thick. The manual weighed infinitely more than all the CDs. It came on a bunch of CDs and you had the manual. And I would have to sit there flicking through the manual to try and find answers to my questions. And I had many questions. I had no one showing me how to use it. I had to learn just literally by trying to accomplish the end result that I was looking for. And it took a while, but eventually I came to understand kind of how the developers thought. And I could start to find things just by looking, because I'm like, okay, I think I know where they would have put that. And then understanding the vocabulary. So I started to understand what they called different things. So I knew which part of the manual to go to and which words to look up in the index at the back of the manual to find the right page. Kids these days wouldn't understand. So that was the learning curve on Adobe. Only, okay, to be fair, that was 30 years ago now. But now you're literally just able to sit there and get it to tutor you. You used to have to pay for a course to do that.
Yeah, and there's all these things. So like, and this is what I was saying, every year there's like new things that come out that shorten what we used to do. So for example, I used to use Zapier to link everything, right? So Zapier was always that sort of connector point when you were trying to get two platforms to work together that didn't normally like integrate. Now you don't need that anymore, because ChatGPT or Grok or whoever will be like, okay, you can do this, and this is how you can create a code to use as a plugin here, or this is how you can do this. Now, it doesn't always work. It's not perfect, but my God, the amount of money I am saving from not having to go to, like, I don't know, Upwork or something like that to try and help get me over these little bridges. It's fascinating. It's wild. I cannot believe how much more I'm learning and how quickly I'm learning it than I am right now.
Yeah. No, it is. It's amazing. What do you got?
Okay, so this is a beautiful compliment. I thought we'd have a bit of a palate cleanse that you and I got.
Ah, isn't that lovely? I'm going to read that out. Because I think it's beautiful. Honestly, you two are not a good pair. You both bring the Melbourne smugness out of each other. It's extremely unattractive. It is just my opinion, but you two are the perfect example of why nobody likes Melbourne. Well, thank you, TIFFComp9311. You are the perfect example of why nobody likes internet chat rooms.
Do you like my response?
Carlz J. Soda says, yikes, sounds like you're unfamiliar with what friendships look like. Thousands of people disagree with you, but go off, queen. Yeah, I like it.
Every so often I see a comment, I'm like, fucking how miserable is your life?
I've never been someone on the internet or in real life to go past something and go, oh, I don't like that. I'd better stop and tell them. I don't, whatever that gene is, whatever that neural connection, I don't have that. I don't like that. I'm going to keep going. That's what my brain does. I don't like it. Therefore, I won't spend any more time here than is absolutely necessary, because out there somewhere is something that I do like. I don't understand.
It cracks me up. I'm the same as you. But anyway, evidently there are people who feel this way because now we have this story which you brought to my attention.
Oh, yes. Yes. Furious woman, 34 years of age, demands ex-boyfriend pay compensation for stealing her childbearing years. He owes me big time. Now, this has actually gone kind of nuts a little bit. I think it's just one of those clickbait stories that the whoever runs the social media of these companies has realized is oh, hang on, sorry, that's the wrong one. Is a good story to make money on. I was just trying to bring up my own version of it, and I brought up the wrong thing. Let me try that again. Image file here. So Sky News, but of course, they're all over it. They love it. Furious woman, 34, demands ex-boyfriend pay compensation for taking her childbearing years. He owes me big time. Literally just a republishing of the exact same story, it would appear.
The Murdoch media is like...
Oh, yeah. No, they're cashing in on the clicks. Now, what was interesting about this was I sent that through to you and I said, this is actually interesting, like, because it does raise a few interesting ethical questions for me. And understand, viewers, this is very rare for like a culture, male-female relationship-y kind of a topic. Normally, I'm the one rolling my eyes. Carly kind of rolled her eyes at me a little bit. She was just kind of like,
bad.
Just another reason for people to rag on women. No, Carly, you're the reason people rag on women. That's entirely on your broad shoulders. But no,
you're not wrong.
I actually think that this it's an interesting ethical
question. Present your argument.
Well, no, so here's the thing. Rewind to the bad old days before feminism made the world the perfect utopia that it is today. And there was an unspoken social contract that was practically universal. You could assume this to be the agreement unless said otherwise, which was boy's gonna meet girl. You're not gonna have sex before marriage unless you really, really, really think you can get away with it, in which case you most definitely will. You're going to get married before you have kids. After getting married, you are going to hurry up and have kids if you're physically able to do it. If you're 5 years into being married and you don't have any kids yet, people are starting to talk. Probably 3 years into being married and you don't have one in the oven, people are starting to talk. And then you are going to live happily ever after with the white picket fence and the 1950s. No, I'm talking before then. But there was an understood social expectation, a sequence for life. And all of that was going to happen when he was in his 20s to 30s at the latest, and she was in her late teens to mid 20s. Right. That was when that was going to happen. And by the time you're 30, you're a dad or you're a mum. Right. And by the time you're 50, you're probably a grandmother, right? For the women. By the time you're 60, you're a grandfather for the men. And that was unspoken. It didn't need to be said because everyone was kind of on board the same page. Now, I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying that's how it was. Now, everything's up for negotiation. But the problem is we don't always have the negotiation. And so we don't always know what the other person actually has as an expectation. Now, in the case of this particular story, I've actually got some sympathy for her because, and we're only hearing her side of the story, but I did actually read the article. I spent the brain cells required and lost the IQ points that come with that. Essentially, the way she kind of puts it, he's older than she is. They got together when she was 24 and she had the expectation that they were going to have kids, that they had conversations where he was going to be the primary breadwinner and she was going to be the primary child carer. So she made career choices on that basis in the expectation that it's not going to be very long and I'm having kids and I'm taking a step back from the workforce. And so
they actually did have the conversation.
They did have the conversation. Yes.
Okay.
Was it enough? I don't know. But what it looks to me like, and what it sounds, and again, we're only hearing her side of the story, and they're not telling us, their names, I think, for obvious legal reasons. But basically, she's jumped online and said, this is my story. This is my situation. He has been in a relationship with her for 10 years. When she's finally started to say, hey, listen, I haven't got forever. I can't have kids when I'm 70 like you can. Let's get on with things. He's dumped her and walked away from the relationship instead. Now, in that situation, I have some sympathy for her perspective because she was sold a certain set of expectations. She was given a set of expectations that she then planned around and made plans for. And time is relentless. It's a cruel master. It passes and never comes back. I'm going to defend her a little bit. I've got a little bit of sympathy for her situation.
Yeah. Now that you've told me a little bit more context, I actually know someone who went through a similar thing with their partner for over 10 years. The next step was, we're going to start. They were engaged. They were about to plan their wedding. And the next day was like, let's do the baby thing. And then he sat her down and said, hey, like, I think I want to put off kids for another 10 years. And understandably, she was like, what the fuck? Like, we're done.
Yeah.
I get that. But I will say, look, I don't disagree with you, right? I do sympathize in that sense. If they had actually had the conversation and they were on the same page, and then all of a sudden he's had a change of heart, that's pretty shit. And she has every right to be annoyed by it. And that's obviously why the relationship ended. But there is also a level of agency that people seem to have abdicated. And I see this everywhere. People seem to have forgotten that we have autonomy. We have free will up until now. I mean, in 5 years' time, who knows what's going to be like in Australia. But, you're able to make decisions. And I've said this before. I've given examples of this when it comes to dating, of women who meet a guy that they're somewhat attracted to. And it could be for his looks or his status or his money or whatever, right? But for whatever reason, they're attracted, even though they know on paper, compared to the values and what they want from their man, he doesn't fit all that criteria. But what they do is they go, I can change him. I can fix him. I'm going to make him work. And this is why, like, whenever I hear that people are breaking up or, my ex was crazy or my ex was this, whatever, it's always the same thing. Like, my ex was crazy. I don't think that for the most part, most of these people who dismiss their exes as being crazy is that the other person was crazy. It's just that they were ill-matched. Like, they were never meant to be together. But something brought them together and they stayed together longer than they should have. And I'll give you an example. So when it comes to, like, Tinder, Bumble, all those apps, I've given my story before. G and I met on Bumble. We are one of those success stories. But that wasn't after I had been on that app for on and off for almost 10 years. I was ruthless, and I used to get picked on by my friends. I know. That's the first thing I said to him. Like, what bloody took you so long? Dude.
She was
what were you
the whole time.
If G-Met had met me 10 years ago, he wouldn't have been ready. He had to wait for the perfect time.
Because you were insufferable.
Nothing's changed. I'm only getting worse.
I didn't. There was just sorry that there was a voice. I didn't say that. I totally didn't say that.
To be fair, he deserves a gold medal because he puts up with my 400 personalities. So, I mean, he's a patient man.
All at once.
But I've seen this with my friends, right? And this is not just anecdotal. I've witnessed this. I knew what I wanted in someone. And I've told this story many times. I've gone on dates, perfectly nice people, nothing wrong with them. But I was like, sorry, you're just not for me. And that person has been offended, like, whoa, we only had one date. Give me a chance. And I'm like, it's not you, man. It's just, I know what I'm looking for. Terribly sorry, but it's not you. Whereas in contrast, I've seen my girlfriends who I love and adore, but, I watch them keep making the same mistakes. Oh, I like him. I'm just going to see how it goes. And that's honestly what they say. I'm just going to see how it goes. Yeah. And they get down, gee, when's this medal going to be delivered? Later. Anyway, Topher's just like, I'm squirming.
I don't think I want to know what that's in reference to.
Anyway, stop derailing my very serious conversation. I've seen this in my girlfriends where they'll go on a date and they'll say, I'll see how it goes. And then literally down, 6-month route, they have this terrible breakup. And it's like a breakup that you'd think they've been together 20 years, because what it is unmatched expectations. You went into it, and I remember this, and like I've consoled so many girlfriends on this exact same topic. And I think this is pretty epidemic of what feminism has taught women as well. Like, go and have everything, you can have it all, and then you can mold your man to be what you want, because if the man doesn't mold to you, if he doesn't bend to you, then he's not a good catch. And it sets you up for failure, because a man, to a degree, when he's in love, will move heaven and earth. But it does come to a point when a man's going to go, well, hang on a minute. This isn't like this. If there's nothing
coming back the other way, then why?
Yeah. And so, yes, a man will move heaven and earth for you if he feels like it's been reciprocated. If it's not, he's going to go, well, this sucks. I'm going to go elsewhere. So, and I've seen this with girlfriends where they've done the whole 6-month thing. And then when I say blow up, I mean, it's like bloom, crazy.
End of the world.
It stems down to the fact that they had nothing in common. They weren't going in the same direction. Most of my friends want kids. why isn't that the first thing you talk about with this prospective partner? Everyone's like, oh, Carly, you're taking it too seriously. Like, you got to chill out in the early days. I'm like, no, you don't. When you're in your fucking 18, 19, 20s, yeah, sure, muck around. But as you're coming into like your late 20s and your 30s, why are you wasting each other's time? Why would you be seeing how it goes? Have that conversation up front. Hey, I actually really want kids and it's a priority for me. And I see myself having them in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Carly, I didn't know that about you. Have you updated G? Because that's quite a departure from where you were at.
No, I want another dog. And Lynette's like, G loves you enough to pull your dough. Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, this is the recurring theme with women. And I see this now, like women are in their 40s, freezing their eggs, doing all these sort of therapies to make them more fertile in their 40s to have babies. And it costs them a fortune. Like freezing your eggs is about $10,000, if not more, plus the toll it takes on your body. When I see this girl and she's asking for compensation, I understand it in a way, but also shame on the girl, because after year 2 and 3, why weren't you guys having that conversation? Why did you wait 10 years? What are you doing?
But this is the thing. The expectation, the automatic expectation is no longer there. Society once upon a time said, well, you've betrothed yourself to each other. Hurry up and get married. Like what's wrong with you? Whereas now we accept everything's up, like I said, everything's up for negotiation, which means kind of there's no real rules and people can end up in this sort of situation. There's a couple of interesting comments here. I agree with this one. That's a shit go, but she can't sue him for that. I agree. I'm not advocating for suing. I just think this is an interesting sort of ethical, moral situation to come up. I want to touch on this though. So insert usernames, a regular commenter and viewer. I have a bit of an issue with this response, and not just on this topic, but on any topic. It's the what about. What about when women do it to men? Well, it's equally bad, but that's not what happened in this case. We're talking about a specific individual. Now, if I was talking in sweeping terms about, women do this all the time to men and not acknowledging, men do this all the time to women and not acknowledging the other way, well, that would be a problem. But we're talking about an individual's particular example. And what I find is it's not constructive oftentimes when you're trying to, someone comes to you and says, oh, my wife just cheated on me with my best friend. Oh, well, what about when men do that to women all the time? It's, well, not helpful. Like this individual's situation is one particular thing, and no one's saying that that's representative of all of the things. It's just that's this particular person's situation. So I kind of cringe a little bit when I see that kind of a response. But
isn't this sort of pointing to the fact that the more we've messed around with traditional gender roles, and look, I'm no traditionalist, just to be abundantly clear, like I'm no, like I don't want children and I have no aspirations of going and living in the Handmaid's Tale. But the more we've mucked around with it,
wives girl, I get that vibe.
Hey, I could be a bored housewife. I could do that. Gee, if you want to throw some bells at me.
This is my point. Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. Carry on.
No. Anyway, I lost my comment. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. So the more we've messed around with traditional gender roles, and women want to be the CEO or the girl boss, and the guy wants to go and be the entrepreneur, and everyone wants to make all this money, and then they get to a point where they go, shit, I'm miserable, I'm deeply unhappy, and we see these massive big midlife crises where relationships break down and they end up going with someone else. And you see this a lot with men. They'll go to a woman and then all of a sudden that woman, that they've broken up with the ex-wife, and then 6 months later they're in a new relationship and that's moving really fast. And people go, whoa, what's happened there? The reason it moves fast is because it works. Like, of course there's like people that are a bit weird that like take those out of it.
On the rebound and that sort of stuff as well. But yeah.
For sure. But for the most part, you finally meet someone, you realize what it is that you truly value. And I've advocated for that on this channel a million times. We are so detached from our own values that we are adhering to the values of other people. And so a lot of women have attached themselves to the values of feminism. And that is that you can have it all and you can do everything. Well, it turns out so can men, and they don't want that. So you've done everything that you wanted. So's the man, and you don't like that. So which one is it? Which one do you want? There has to be some level of compromise. That and I think this is also showing, and I'm jumping over to a new topic, but this is also showing in the way our youth is. Look at Gen Z. They're the first generation with both both parents were in the workforce most of their childhood. Millennials to a degree still had a mum at home in the early years. Gen Z, for the most part, both parents have been in full-time employment their whole childhood. So they're brought up by the school, by after-school care, by childcare centers. I'm really curious what's going to happen to Gen Alpha. I mean, Gen Alpha is what, like the oldest is about 10, I think. I can't remember where it cuts off. But
I think they're a bit older than that. But yeah, still young.
Yeah, we're seeing what this is actually doing to the generations under us as well, because people aren't present. So, and then obviously now we have a youth crime epidemic. We have a, like an anxious and ADHD epidemic.
Let me sign off on this topic. Let me sign off on this topic before we get into the next one, because I do have some stuff to do with school and the lockdown generation going to school. But we'll get to that. How much compensation is this worth, though? Well, this is the thing. What she's saying is she needs money for freezing eggs and doing all that stuff that Carly was just talking about. So that's how she's kind of valuing that. Again, I don't agree that it's worth compensation, but I think it's interesting. And a not safe for work comment from RDL that I do think is worth reading, mostly because of the wordplay at the end. She could have got pregnant anytime she wanted to, unless he was using condoms all the time or had the snip. The ball's in her court, so to speak. I just had to appreciate the wordplay at the end there. I just wanted to read that out on air.
It's an interesting one. And someone made a comment. I've lost it, but someone was like, I don't know who turned this chat into the Women's Day or Women's Weekly, but I find it interesting. I just think these kind of chats are really important because, we can talk about news, we can talk about politics, but really what we're actually talking about is what we're like as a community, what we're like when we relate to each other. And I think things have gone fundamentally wrong. I really do.
Yeah. All right. So I've got a host of stories, and if you don't grab one soon, I'm going to grab one of mine and torture you with it.
Give me one of yours. Give me a good one.
Okay. Okay. So I love
stories that I haven't even got one. Line it up. Come on.
Yeah. I didn't know. I love this. I want to read this out on air. So this is the Radio Brisbane. Oops, hang on. Let me get rid of that comment. There we go. Radio Brisbane. Parent Sally Branson was speaking with Alan Fanning on Drive about other parents who have decided to help their children breach the social media ban for people under the age of 16 that comes into effect on December 10th. The quote from this parent is, "People are looking for VPNs. This is law and legislation. If you're saying to your child, I will help you circumvent this, you are saying your child is better than the law. Damn straight. Because good people break bad laws." Yes, shameless product placement, shameless merchandising. There is a massive civil disobedience movement brewing around the under 16 social media age ban, and I think it's brilliant. Bring it on.
Yeah, I think so too. I've seen a lot of articles talking about how social media has been wonderful for families, and this is going to force them to flee. And, whether that's because they've built an audience online or the kids gotten into YouTube. There's a kid influencer. I think that's what you call it, like a kidfluencer or something like that, reviews toys and gets like 30 million views a month. And the kid's 9 years old. Set him and the family up for a generation. Social media certainly has some evil elements to it. I will never deny that. But it's also been wonderful for so many reasons. And I just think this is going to backfire. And like anything our government does or tries to roll out will be a spectacular disgrace. But G mentioned to me when he came home. Apparently, Anthony Albanese was on Kyle and Jackie O show this morning. And Kyle and Jackie were pressing him on how the social media ban will work. And he kept talking around, like dancing around it. And Jackie pushed him like 3 times.
I read a bunch of the quotes, and he can't answer it because he has no concept of how the internet works. But actually, more than that, even the tech companies themselves can't answer it. They were pressed again late last week. It must have been 3-4 days ago. They still cannot give specifics on how they are going to go about complying with this legislation. They keep on saying, we've got teams working on it. The lawyers are looking at the legalities of it. The IT people are looking at the technicalities of it. We're still working it out. What are we now? We're less than a month away from that, from the magic day when it's all supposed to happen. I've said all along, and it's been really funny watching most of the reputable media come around to my position. There's still a few outliers that are going out there for clicks. I saw another video went viral about 2-3 days ago predicting end of the world kind of apocalypse stuff on January. For some reason, they were saying December 27th. I didn't understand why, but December 10th is when this comes in. This is not going to affect most people on day one. The vast majority of us will not be aware that this has been switched on. If we notice anything at all, it will be only that we perhaps think, oh, it's a bit quiet on the internet today because maybe 5% of accounts have been affected or something like that. The vast majority of people, because of how long you've had your account or because of the kind of things you do with your account, will be automatically verified as over the age of 16, right?
Yeah.
And you will not even be aware that it's happened. The social media companies will 95% of the accounts will get cleared instantly. The 5% left, they will then apply more scrutiny to. And yes, a portion of those may end up in a situation where their account is suspended until they provide government issued ID or something like that. And that shouldn't happen. I'm not defending it, but I'm just saying for the vast majority of us, we are not going to notice this the day that it comes in. However, sorry.
I just thought this comment was funny. Kids should be searching up things like tax and elderly diseases and they won't think they're under 16.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit worried about my YouTube account because apparently I watch an awful lot of Curious George and Paw Patrol. So, I'm a little bit worried that the AI might get tripped up by that. I'm not quite sure. But what's interesting to me is the Karen, Julie Inman Grant, has not applied for an extension to her contract. She said that she's going to end next year. Now, that's really interesting to me because there are going to be lawsuits. We know that. I've gone through this in detail in my videos. I'm not going to re-prosecute that here. There are going to be lawsuits. The eSafety Office is going to say to the tech platforms, you have not taken reasonable steps. You automatically approved too many accounts. We want you to do more. And the tech companies are going to say, no, we have taken reasonable steps. Sue us. And then the government will have to sue them. They'll end up in court. The US government will get heavily involved the way they did when the UK tried to ban encryption. Again, I've covered all of this before. Julie Inman Grant does not want to be there when that dumpster fire rages. She wants to be gone, and she will be. By the time those lawsuits are underway, she'll be gone, out of the role already, riding off into the sunset with whatever golden handshake she gets, moving into some other highly paid government position that she's doubtless not qualified for as well. The fact that she is happily walking away from this role and from this department says to me that she doesn't expect her current losing streak to turn around anytime soon. I think that this whole debacle will run from about now till about 2028. It will never get fully implemented. It will never be nearly as strict and as tight as the Australian government wants it to be. And at the most, it will run up until the next US election. And if someone like a JD Vance or a Marco Rubio wins the next US election, the Australian government will abandon the whole thing at that point because they will realize what they'll be hoping for with these lawsuits is delay. A Democrat wins the presidency and maybe the tech companies can be forced to back down. But if JD Vance or Marco Rubio wins the next US presidential election in late 2028, then at that point, you're going to see the Australian government roll over. I don't ever expect that this will get implemented all the way.
Well, what I find really interesting is they've just added a bunch of platforms. So Reddit's going to be banned, but I'm just reading here, messaging services like Discord and WhatsApp and gaming platforms like Lego Play and Roblox will not be included. Roblox is known to be the biggest pedophile hangout. These kids can still access, they can still access Pornhub. And the crazy thing is, right? So, and then I read something here. I was trying to find it. I think Kick is banned. Oh no, so Twitch is banned, but not Kick, and they're both streaming platforms. So
it's extremely arbitrary.
But what they're basically saying is like they're locking out a competitor for no other reason than like, oh, we've deemed that one evil, therefore they're losing part of their market share because of the government. The government can't do that. That'll go straight to the High Court and be overturned immediately.
There's going to be so many lawsuits.
Yeah, like the more I hear about this, the more I'm like, this is so embarrassing for the government because they're like, oh, we're doing it for the kids. And I'm like, then why are you allowing Roblox and Pornhub? Like they're the two. Why are those two allowed?
It is going to be an absolute clusterfuck. Sorry for the expression, but it is. But we already knew that, and I called that very, very early on. And it's kind of funny watching the mainstream media and more elements of the alternative media coming around to that same position as the date approaches. They're finally going, oh, hang on. Now they can see that the pieces have moved in the way that they have. It's like, well, that was obvious when this got announced. But okay, you know, nice to have everyone on the same page now.
It's like everything. Sorry, go.
Sorry. I was just going to say I think we missed this comment earlier on the previous topic about that woman saying, you know, I want compensation for those 10 years. Found Hope says, so can I sue my ex for stealing my lad years? As we did split up and I had to pay child support for 18 years. Not much fun or spare cash in those times. Yeah. And look, I don't know your situation in particular, Found Hope, but I know that in these sorts of situations, parental alienation can be a huge problem. And there are situations where they'll happily sit there and take the cash for 18 years, but deny access and all sorts of nonsense and games that goes on. The whole system's really broken. No, I don't want them to be able to sue. I don't want you to be able to sue them for stealing your lad years. But I certainly, you know, there is a lot wrong with the legal system and the family system at the moment. So yeah, that's a tough break.
I was just thinking then, I don't want to jump back onto that topic, but when it comes to traditional relationships, there's definitely a push towards people sort of going away from this, you know, girl boss and lad era. Like more and more people going, I just want to find my person and like opt out of all of this shenanigans and all this craziness. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen, but I do know that most people are fundamentally miserable.
And I do know that the world's most locked down kids are about to start school. And apparently now 5 years later, when it's too late to do a damn thing about it, when people like you and me, Carly, were threatened with prison for daring to speak up about it at the time when it could have made a difference, 5 years later, the experts think that we should be worried. How does that make you feel, Carly?
You think about what yourself, myself, and everyone else who spoke up have been through. You think about what it did to our lives and how
what it is still doing.
What it's still doing. To a degree, it's still happening. All we did was speak up for common sense. Everything you and I spoke about has come to fruition. Every single thing. Small businesses closing down, kids being rocked by it, like everything that we talked about, government overreach, surveillance, censorship, everything we talked about has literally come true. The lab leak theory.
I was wrong about that.
Almost like the lab leak theory, were you?
That's my one thing. That is my one claim to shame. I was wrong about the lab leak theory. I dismissed it. It had shades of racism. I bought all that nonsense that came with it when it first came out. And I was completely wrong. That was the one thing that I got completely wrong was I dismissed the lab leak theory. When I make mistakes, and I do from time to time, they are way more often in the form of me being not conspiratorial enough.
Yeah.
That's the direction that I tend to make my mistakes in.
My thing is like the most obvious thing is usually true. And like when I heard a convoluted story about a pangolin and a bat and someone drinking some soup, I was like, you're trying too hard. You know what? You know how people are lying? Because the stories get like way too elaborate. Yeah. And they go down like, and then this happened. I'm like, dude, just saying your cat was sick would have covered it. But the fact that you've gone into all this excruciating detail tells me that you are telling a big porky pie.
So James, I don't know how old your kids are, but if your kids are in primary school, you should probably find them a different platform to collaborate on for their group projects. I'm just saying, unless there really is a thing called Corn Hub, and it's just like big cobs of corn, and you can just be like, wow, that is a nice yellow cob of corn. If it's actually that, then sure.
Do you know what I find fascinating? I was reading an article today, and I was going to bring it up, but I don't want to talk about she who will not be named. And it was talking about how leftist progressive women are now championing Islam and cheerleading sex work. But they're angry that women want to have children and not have multiple partners. I don't understand how these things all work together. Islam is very anti-women. Islam doesn't allow for women to be promiscuous. It also doesn't allow for self-expression. I'll give you an example, and I
Or
don't mean
to
to bring her
own
up.
property, to run a business, or to go outside in public under the
Show
extreme
their
versions
face.
of Islam. Show your face.
I'm so sorry. G's going to yell at me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I watched a video by Abby Chatfield. I'm so sorry. Please don't yell at me. Please don't yell at me.
No, hang on. Pause. Hold that thought. I thought I was going to have to mark my calendar because this was the day when a woman was actually making a sincere apology to a man. You had my heart was racing for a second. I'm like, gee, are you sitting down, man? Are you ready for this? It was just about a video of Abby Chatfield, for crying out loud.
Okay, no. So it wasn't a news story. It was just something that someone sent to me because like I said, I don't look at her shit. Anyway, she was dancing, and I have to tell you what she did because I just find it like I'm trying to understand how someone can hold all these thoughts simultaneously. She was wearing a pair of shorts and she had her phone on the floor and she was dancing like this whilst the phone was literally pointed up, upwards in her areas. Classy.
Yeah.
And she was dancing like, oh my God, I'm so excited that a socialist Muslim man won mayor of New York City. And I'm watching it. I'm like, the contradictions in these videos are just so obscene to me. I'm like, I'm trying to understand it and I can't. Take Abby out of it. You've got someone who's a progressive feminist who's championing an Islamic mayor who's a socialist. It's like they're cheering on their own death. They are literally cheering for the day when Sharia law will be impacted. And I saw a whole host of these when Mandani won in New York City. Women, and they're women, and I'm embarrassed by this. Like, I'm embarrassed that it's women who are cheering for Zohan Mandani for being a socialist and a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and then today I was watching a video, I can't remember his name, a YouTuber, was just in Afghanistan and showing him going across Afghanistan like literally about a month ago. And he's talking about how the women, you can't film them. They can't speak. They don't leave the house without mail. They're not allowed to talk to each other. They're not allowed to go into school after 11 years old. And I'm like, how? How are we, how? What happened to women?
Yep. So we were watching a Yes Theory video. My wife and I were watching a Yes Theory video. She likes them. Yeah, she likes them. And they did a video in Brunei, and the main guy wasn't available. I think something had happened. I think a family tragedy. One of his parents or grandparents had passed away or something.
Thomas's mum died, yeah.
Yeah, and so he sent his mate, his travel companion, and a cameraman into Brunei, and they were given a challenge. And look, it was they do good work. It was a really enjoyable video, and they are exactly the kind of people that you just like. Yeah, I would have a barbecue with you. I want to hang out with you. Like, they're just really cool people. But what was interesting, they ended up hanging out for 3 days basically with a Brunei family. You only saw one of the women. And that was the oldest, the matriarch of the family. We never saw another one of the women at any point. The women didn't eat with the men. They were just completely erased. They didn't exist. We know that they must have existed because there were young children. And that usually means that there has to be a female of birthing age somewhere not too far away. But that's the only evidence we had for the existence of women in that video. And I don't say that to criticize the Yes Theory guys. They just go to wherever they go to, and that's they observe and participate in and try and show the most joyful human side of whatever country they're in. That's what they do, and they do it really well. But you can't, once you notice that, you can't unsee it. The women were completely erased out of any sort of public appearance in that entire culture and society, and they are by no means the most extreme.
There was a movie I watched, I want to say like 2007, 2008, I think somewhere there. It's called Sharia, I believe.
Yeah.
I might have got that wrong. And it was about a girl, I want to say, I'm sorry, it's a while ago. I haven't seen it since. She was either in Iran or Iraq. And she was stoned by her own family as an honor killing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the movie told the story of this. And I can't remember if it's based on a true story, if it was just sort of telling it. It was a real indie movie. It wasn't Hollywood at all.
Yeah. Well, this stuff happens all the time. So based on a true story or not, it wouldn't be that far from the truth.
No, and I saw this when I was like 19, 20, right? And I've never gotten over it. And I don't even ever want to watch it again because it left such a horrible imprint on me. And I'm so sorry I'm loose on the details because I really don't remember it well enough. But essentially, this woman was accused of something because she didn't want to marry either her first cousin or her uncle at 11. And
happens all the time.
So their only choice, because this woman was embarrassing the family, was to murder her. Her own flesh and blood buried her up until her chest in dirt. And then the local community all took turns in throwing stones at her. And the rocks were only about this big. Can you imagine how many rocks you have to throw at a woman that are this big?
I don't really want to. Yeah.
Until she dies.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten over that movie, right? Contrasted, and that's like around September 11 and the war in Iraq, like that's that era. Now here we are in 2025. You got Queers for Palestine. A gay Palestinian was literally just beheaded in West Bank a week ago.
Yeah.
And then you've got Abby's and her like the reason I talk about Abby, just so you guys know, she has on TikTok almost 600,000 followers. Like she get like whether or not you like her or not, she has like pull among the young women. She's excited for socialism. She's excited for an Islamist mayor of New York City. I'm trying so hard to understand how young women fell into this trap of celebrating Islam. Like, do they not know history? Are they not interested? Has history been whitewashed in some way? Like, I don't understand it.
They are defined by who they hate more than by what they love. And so when they find somebody that hates the same things they hate, they don't see what that person or that ideology really is. They just see, oh, hey, we're in this together. We must be friends. They are united by their hatred of men and or Western men in particular, and Western imperialism, by their hatred of Christianity. And that's enough for them. They bond over those things, and then they fail to see the differences. It's that thing of the dude standing there with a noose around his neck. It's a picture that goes around, noose around his neck, tied with a loose rope to a sapling, but he's standing there watering the sapling, right? And that given enough time, eventually that tree's going to grow up, and he's going to hang on the tree that he watered. That's exactly what wokies and feminists are doing with their celebration of and their welcoming of Islam into Western countries. If Islam gets into dominance, they will do here exactly what Islam does in any other country where they're dominant. Like we know what they're going to do. They're not exactly being sneaky about it. They tell us point blank, this is what we want. We want Sharia law. Yeah. We want all of this. This is what we're going to do. And yet somehow, I don't know, people don't get it.
This is the movie. I just found it. So it's called The Stoning of Soraya M. And this movie messed me up, like really messed me up. And I have to wonder, like, has Abby Chatfield ever looked at this sort of stuff? Does she understand what Sharia law is? Does she? And you know how people do the whataboutisms all the time? Like, how can you talk about that? You're not talking about Gaza. How can you talk? Like, there's always whataboutisms, but it never goes the opposite way. How can you sit there dancing over a socialist Muslim mayor, knowing full well in Iran, they're still oppressed to a point where they have to wear the hijab. And a woman was murdered because she didn't. She tried to start a movement. In Iraq, in Syria, women are murdered over honor killings. This is happening today. And Abby's dead silent. I can't. Yep. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. It's quite remarkable. So that's Koala Blue says that's the movie. I was gobsmacked watching it. Yeah, it sounds exactly like the kind of movie I do not want to watch. Oops.
Yeah.
Comment just got away from me. There we go. Joe Cameron says, hate to say it, but when people support things like Islam, which would totally contradict feminist values, for example, shows that the younger population is getting dumber. There's no cure for stupid. I don't know, Joe. I'm mindful of, you go right back to Seneca and, back into Greek historians and philosophers, and you read some of the things that they said about the younger generation back in their time. And if you update the language, it sounds exactly like what we say about kids these days. So I don't know. Are they dumber?
I think you got to be careful with blanket statements. There's a lot of genuinely intelligent kids. But the one thing I'll say to you, and I mean, I've said it multiple times on this podcast, I've just gone through the tertiary education system. They are being indoctrinated. It's not that they're dumb. It's that there's no objective truth anymore. They are being told what to think. They are pumping out zealots. And I saw this, right? Like I opened this podcast saying that a woman was like, do your research. And when I said, I have, she's like, oh, but not that research. Because in her mind, there is no other existence of research that counteracts her point of view. So, I don't want to be mean to kids. Like, I can be really hard on Gen Z, I know, but I think also we've set them up to fail.
Yeah. So there was a comment earlier that I chose not to show because we dove into talking about sort of Sharia law and the way women are being mistreated. And so it didn't quite fit in that particular moment, but it would be kind of nice to have it now. So I'm scrolling, but I don't like my chances because the comments are coming in too thick and fast. It said, women got what they wanted. That's the problem. And that's why men should be in charge. Yeah.
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 I thought, well, do you know what's interesting? Because G and I have this conversation often. Like, we'll sit there and dissect the news and talk about things. And like, you know, I feel like I'm a tricky one to pigeonhole here. I'm not a feminist and I'm not a traditionalist. I don't know what you call me. I'm just a naughty libertarian.
I've heard what G calls you behind your back, but I won't say it on air. It'll get us cancelled.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it for a minute. So, like, you know, because the feminists will be like, oh, Carly, you got to be grateful to feminism. That's why you're allowed to not have kids and be the girl boss that you are. And then on the other side, the conservatives say, Carly, you're so lucky that you were raised by, you know, good parents who have been able to keep your level head and, you know, you were educated, which is why you haven't fallen for the woke mind virus or whatever. I don't know what the opposite is. I don't think you need to be on a fence here, on one side of the fence here. I think there needs to be a level of women should be able to have autonomy. And I keep hearing this from Tim Pool. He keeps saying, like, repeal the 19th, right? Which is the 19th Amendment, which women were allowed to vote.
Right.
And I get like, he's being hyperbolic, but he says it frequently. And people keep saying, like, this is what happened when we gave women power. Look what they've done to the institutions. Look what they've done to this. And I agree with it in a couple ways, because women refuse to accept that we're built differently. Women can do everything a man can do. That's their whole thing. Women are far more empathetic and far more emotional than men. We know that. Like, that is a biological thing, and it's designed for a reason, because one of us is meant to be mothers.
Yeah.
And I see this all the time. Like, I'm halfway through.
It's not me.
I have no emotion, so I'm also a terrible sample of the thing. No. But reading Gad Saad's book, I've just started the first couple of chapters, and he talks about suicidal empathy. And I see this all the time. And I'm going to give you another example. I saw a video the other day of a Gen Z girl. She was like 28, and she's put a video up on TikTok, and she's talking about how she got paid yesterday, and today she only has $100 to last her a fortnight. So in her pay, she paid rent, groceries. She had a fine to pay. She got a speeding fine, and she paid her utilities. And all that she had left over was $100 for the next 13 days. Now, this, for whatever reason, this video went viral. And I didn't think much of it. Like, I've been on TikTok. Just do not judge me, but call it market research. Anyway, so I'm reading the comments. And the top comment floored me. Absolutely floored me. And I think this actually sums up where we are in Australia. The top comment was, all I heard was that you have a roof over your head, you have access to food, heating and cooling, and evidently, because you're filming this sitting in a car, you have access or you own a car. So you're doing better than most. And that doesn't sound like something to whinge about to me. And that comment had like 16,000 likes. I'm not even joking.
Yeah. So this comes back to something we talk about a lot. Multiple things can be true at once. That probably needs to be on the mug, right? Multiple things can be true at once. It can simultaneously be true that, yes, having a roof over your head and maybe some food in the cupboard, drinkable water coming out of a tap, and electricity when you flick a switch puts you amongst the wealthiest people that have ever lived. That can be true simultaneously with it is much harder to make ends meet than what it should be. Yeah. Both of those things can be, and I will argue both of those things 100% are true in every Western country in the world today. It is way harder to make ends meet, to survive, to eat well, to have enough money for all your bills, to put money aside for future contingencies or when a tire blows because there's a pothole in the road or whatever it may be. It is way harder to do that than it should be. Simultaneously, we live among the best and most prosperous lifestyles that any human beings have ever known, comparable or arguably better than kings 250 years ago. Those two things are simultaneously true. And that's what creates a lot of the confusion, because there are people who have certain agendas who will point to only one set of facts. And they'll say, this is true, and that excludes everything else. And this is why we repeat it over and over again, because it's such an important concept. Multiple things can be true at once. Someone can prove their point that this is true, but that doesn't mean that that's the entire truth. And this is a really important sort of example of that. Both of those things can be true at once. Yeah, she is living an incredibly privileged life by any historical measure, but also her privileged life is being made a lot more difficult than it could and should be because of the way that our current society is set up, the cost of government, the cost of living, the results out of inflation, all those things that we talk about all the time. So I've kind of got sympathies on both sides of that argument.
It's a funny one. I don't know. Like, the more I look into this, like, I've been going down a TikTok rabbit hole because I'm like, I know I'm in an echo chamber at times. I need to go behind enemy lines and learn. And bloody hell, am I shocked by what I see.
Yeah, oftentimes. Look, we need to move on to other news because we're an hour and a half in and I think we've done like 2 stories.
All right, go. What have you got?
Oh, me? Gosh.
Oh, I've got one. Let's do this one because I know you're going to gloat. Hang on. Let me pull it up.
I love a good
I'm
gloat.
sorry, guys. We need to visit the Socialist Republic of Victoria again because it's just fucking embarrassing at this point. I just have so much shame. All right. Do it. I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. So I've been doing a story recently. I've done a story a couple of times on the town of Tubia in Queensland. It's a great example of what's coming everyone's way. They were claimed under native title from the tribe that lives in North Stradbroke Island, which is literally hundreds of kilometers away. And the claim was granted by their local council. It was granted without argument. It was basically just done on a consent basis because the council never told the people of the town what was happening behind their backs. The council just consented to it, gave it a tick, and through it went. Now, I don't know that that's what's going to happen here, but what's really concerning to me about this, well, number one, think about the land value inside of that area. These people are simply saying, we want trillions of dollars, thank you very much, right? Now, the claim is it won't affect your private property. But how often, when it comes to issues surrounding Indigenous culture and issues and so forth, all we want is native title. All we want is land rights. We just want to be able to live on our land that we've had historical connection with all the way through, and that's all we want. So they get the Mabo decision. Oh well, actually now all we want is a sorry. We just want an apology. That's all. We're not gonna use that apology to try and get anything else. If you could just give us an official apology, we'll be all good. It'll be all over. It'll be finished. They get the apology. Well, actually, now that you've acknowledged that what you did was wrong, what we actually want is da, 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 da. Now we're talking about treaty. We're talking about the voice. We're talking about reparations, Makarrata, and land claims are becoming increasingly aggressive. Now, there's a couple of really interesting details about this one. I don't remember his name, but the dude who founded Melbourne paid the local tribe for that land. I don't remember. I should have looked this up. He actually bought it off them on commercial terms for the standards of the time, not forgetting that this was just empty marshland. A lot of it was bog at the time. It's been improved since then by human engineering. He bought Melbourne off the local tribe. And so that would be an interesting little wrinkle that I'd love to see how that plays out in court, because that was a contract, that was an agreement. It's well documented in history books. So are they trying to overturn that? Now that only covers, to my knowledge, that only really covers the Melbourne grid and maybe a little bit of area beyond that. It certainly doesn't cover the whole area that is now being claimed. But if you want to sit there, and they say in this article, and they say in the other articles, they say, oh, this isn't going to affect private property titles. It's not going to affect parks, but it's not going to affect Crown land. It's not going to affect roads and everything else. Okay, so what does it affect?
It says it specifically affects Crown land. It's what it said. It affects Crown land is what it says.
Okay, sorry. Well, the thing that I was reading said that it won't affect the use of Crown land. So then maybe they were being a little bit tricky there. I need to look a bit deeper into that. But there's a reason why they're doing this. It's like with the voice. They said, oh, it's just an advisory body. It won't have any power. And then you look into the fine print and you realize this thing's going to have a huge amount of power. The treaty in Victoria that's now been done, this Indigenous body, has way more power than what was said, what was promised. If you are okay with Indigenous people having claim to your land because it's not going to affect you, well, you are so naive and gullible. I have a bridge to sell you, and would you like to buy the Eiffel Tower with that? Because that is the ultimate bait and switch.
Honestly, like, let them have it. Let them have a taste. Like, wait till these champagne socialists in all of these very affluent areas of Melbourne, which are included in that little circle, all of a sudden have to start paying double everything because now you have to pay the Aboriginals, whether it's like land use or if you want to be able to access the waterways, you're going to have to pay this. And, you can't go on that land anymore. We've decided that's sacred.
Yep.
Like,
you can't hunt there, can't fish there.
We are going to see so many things. I saw an article today, and I haven't had a chance to dive into it, but it was about reservations for American Indian settlements in Canada. And same kind of thing here, right? They've got their native titles. They've got control of the land. And they did like an aerial flyover with a drone. And again, I've only briefly looked at this story, so I don't want to misquote the story, but I believe it was in BC. And what has happened is those who live on the reservation have treated the land so poorly that sections of it are now considered toxic. They've created an illegal dumping area, and it's basically like illegal landfill where so much rubbish has accumulated that soil is now toxic. And prior to that, it was pristine national park.
Yeah.
And
so only rich people can afford to care about the environment. What's happened in the US, I can't comment so much on Canada. I know a lot less about the Canadian situation with reservations, but the US situation with reservations was basically, we're going to create these sections of land where you get to go and self-govern. And different ones are different, but my understanding is that there are some of them where even a murder won't be investigated by the US government or by the local sheriffs. It gets taken care of by the local Indian authorities. And if they want to bring in, like if they believe that the murder was done by an outsider, they'll bring in outside law enforcement to go and catch him, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a purely internal issue, we don't want to know. Right? They sort it out themselves. And so this is why gambling, for example, is very, very commonplace on these Indian reservations, because the federal government or the state government bans on gambling, which it's banned in most of the US. Nevada allows it. I think New Orleans, they've got some riverboats and so forth there. There's a few places that allow it. But in a lot of the United States, gambling's banned. But on American Indian reservations, it's the biggest thing you'll see is a big-ass casino sitting there to make money. Brothels, and various forms of hunting or various other activities like that, where you pay big money to go in and shoot things that you're not allowed to shoot outside of an Indian reservation because they get to make their own laws. Now, that seems to have worked in a sense, and there's a couple of reasons why I say that. Firstly, they've had connection to that land all the way through. Right. These reservations tended to be essentially where they ended up as the white man moved across the continent, either through conflict and war, through deception in some cases, or in some cases by agreement, although not always a happy agreement, but by agreement. They've ended up in these places and they've had a continuous connection to those pieces of land. But what happens, interestingly, is if they can't make any money, they start to get more desperate. And there are instances where they've become toxic waste dumps. And they've agreed, hey, we'll take all your toxic waste. We'll stick it in we'll stick it in that ravine over there. Who cares what happens to the water runoff when it goes down into the groundwater and everything else? We don't care. Just pay us the money. Rich people can afford to care about the environment. Poor people can't. And they'll take whatever they can get. And so it's not surprising to me. I mean, a modern day American Indian or Inuit or Australian Aborigine knows next to nothing about the land compared to what their ancestors who lived on it, were born on it, breathed it. From the moment they were born, their very viability as a surviving human being depended on their ability to understand the land. Modern day most of that's going to be gone. I'm not going to say all of it, but a lot of that's going to be gone. And there are clearly people who are very willing to just be opportunistic. I don't care what effect that has on the land. Just give me the money. Those people exist in every culture and society, and Indigenous communities or American Indian reservations are no exception.
Yeah. I want to contrast that to, like, these are the people who are leading us. Jacinta Allen, like, I mean, we've said enough about her, but this popped up today. Let me just pull it up. It's our favorite. She's almost a friend of the show at this point.
Almost, yeah. Not quite at the Abbey level.
Not quite, but this is Marine. Well, I have to
say, I'm feeling a bit jilted by Bonnie Blue recently. I feel like she used to be a friend of the show. What happened to her? What happened to us, Bonnie? Bonnie, where are you?
She got boring and predictable. I mean, you know, that's what happens. You push it too far and it's sort of like, yeah. But speaking of boring and predictable, the Greens are quite perturbed that one nation is starting to really gain traction because, of course, it's far-right extremism, because she's not extreme. She's not extreme. She is the bastion of morality, Marine Farquhar,
Faruqi, something like that.
I'll never be able to say her name.
You can't compare extreme left-wing ideology with moderate right-wing nationalist ideology. That's just, you know, anyone to the right of Stalin. We've talked about this, Carly. I can't believe I have to go over this again with you. Anyone to the right of Stalin is literally Hitler. Can we just accept that that's true? Don't ask me to explain it. Don't ask me to justify it. It's just true. All right?
They say it's true, so it must be true.
That's right. That woman, that one nation woman, I tell you, what a scourge on humanity she is.
Can I read this statement? So this is from Marine. What is her name? Faruqi. Where did I get Farquhar from?
I think it's Faruqi or Faruqi. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So she's Pakistani for starters, and she's an immigrant, and she's a senator for the Greens. And she goes,
can I touch on the Pakistani thing? Sorry, can I touch on the Pakistani thing? She was required, so she had not revoked her citizenship properly when she ran or after she was sworn in. I don't remember the details of the timing, but she was very upset about having to go and revoke her Pakistani citizenship. She did not think that she should have to do that in order to serve the Australian people as a taxpayer-funded senator representing the Australian people and the Australian people alone. She took issue with the idea that she could not also be a Pakistani citizen. And I think that says a lot right there.
Oh, doesn't it? These people just hate this country. Why are you here? Wasn't it Pauline Hanson that said to her, go back to Pakistan then? Like, I'm so on board with that sentiment.
Yeah. But it was also, hang on, it's funny though, because it was dual citizenship issues that got Pauline in trouble. And I believe, and I'm digging into the memory here, but I think Malcolm Roberts had a brief issue with some potential citizenship issues as well, and others have as well. It's not a particularly uncommon thing in today's world. When our Constitution was written, the idea of being a dual citizen was incredibly rare. And so, you know, today it's becoming much more of an issue. But I think Pauline Hanson, out of everybody, has standing, given that she went to prison for it. She has standing to be able to tell some of these other people where to go.
Yeah, I think so too. And Pauline, you know, she's got a backbone, man. She's one of the few in there that does. And she stood by herself for 30 years. Now all of a sudden she's finally getting a return on and all that. But I'm going to read you this statement from Marine.
Sorry, I keep interrupting. I will stop.
Yeah. You know me, I'm not one for mincing my words, so I'll say it like this. The political space they've captured overseas exists here too. I assume she's referring to Trump. It is waiting for us. It is begging for us. I think she's talking about Zohan. We must be bold enough to claim it. We have got to be honest with ourselves, though. The Green vote in Australia has stagnated. We are not winning in the way we should, despite the fact that our policies do tackle the scale of ecological, economic, and social crises we face. Meanwhile, as the Liberal Party collapses, the hard right surges. One Nation doubled its senators last election. Their national polling has doubled too. They are now polling ahead of us. I wonder why. This has me really worried. But this next bit, this bit in bold, really bothers me. This has me really worried, not just for migrants, Muslims, and trans people, but for everyone in this country. Why the fuck were they singled out? Why were migrants, Muslims, and trans people signaled out singled out above Australians.
Yeah.
Who are you advocating for? You are an Australian representative. And she goes on to say, we have to ask ourselves why ordinary people disillusioned with politics are not turning to the party with the most humane, future-focused policies in the country. Why we're not peeling more people away from Labor.
Because you're an idiot. That's why. So the Greens have run into a problem where they're a known quantity. Anyone that's ever going to vote for the Greens has already voted for them at least once in their life. Now, having said that, I'm going to flag an area where I've been wrong. I said the same thing about One Nation. One Nation's peaked. Everyone that's ever going to vote for One Nation has already voted for One Nation. Well, on current polling, that's being proven wrong, right? So clearly what's happened in the case of One Nation, Pauline Hanson, she's been saying things for a very long time that are finally being proven to be true. They were always true, but now the fact that they're true is becoming undeniable. She and Malcolm Roberts, etc., rejected net zero from the start. They rejected all the nonsense about cutting CO2 emissions. They rejected all of it outright, back when it was very politically incorrect, back when you weren't supposed to do that. And now they're being rewarded for it. People like the Nationals are coming in late. And they're trying to say, hey, listen, we're rejecting net zero too. We can be the cool kids as well, because they've realized that the winds have shifted. But it's not credible, especially not with David Littleproud still in the leadership of that party. It's not credible because this is a change in position from them. For One Nation, this is their position. This has always been their position. Same on immigration. I disagree with them on immigration, but most of Australia now agrees with them. Most of Australia's come across to their position, and they can credibly defend that position because it's been their position the whole time. And again, we could go through issue after issue. So I think the reason why One Nation have broken out of that ceiling that I predicted they wouldn't be able to break out of is because history has vindicated so much of what they said. For the Greens, that's never going to happen because everything they say is nonsense. They're never going to ride a wave of vindication. It's just not going to happen. There's not going to be a moment in time where you and I look at each other and go, oh my goodness, we were completely wrong about this climate change thing. It turns out it is an existential crisis. That day's never coming. So that breakout event that's going to allow them to break out of their current cap is simply never going to happen. For Mehreen Faruqi, I mean, it's amazing that she's even still in the Greens, given all the nonsense and the grief she's caused them. But they've peaked. That's it for them. The Labor Party are going to eat their lunch, even as One Nation are eating the Liberal Party.
Yeah, it's interesting. God, the whole far right, hard right rhetoric is just exhausting.
Tiring.
None of these people want to admit the fact that the political, the Overton window has shifted so far in their favor that anyone that's now considering One Nation is just exactly where they were prior. It's just everything's moved over. Everything that Liberals currently stand for, especially under Susan Ley, is a Labor light. So when people are saying, well, I'm going to One Nation, they haven't gone far right. They're still where they were. Their values are still the same. And G did make a point, to be fair, I haven't been on X a lot the last couple of days, but he was saying that there's already a bunch of hit pieces coming out about Pauline. They're really drumming the war up on her again because obviously she's doing something right, which tells you she's over target. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They're worried. Yeah. Sloth. No, I'm sorry. Your keyboard problems pale into insignificance. I am busy grifting for my first private jet. Thank you very much. So your keyboard is going to have to wait. And frankly, I'm offended that you asked. I think that's just rude. And this is my grifting platform. I have very graciously, out of the kindness of my heart, allowed Carly to share my grifting platform. And I think you should be ashamed that you even asked about grifting for a keyboard when I don't have my jet yet. Back in your box.
Do you know who we can ask? Is the first trillionaire.
Well,
Elon
listen,
Musk.
I'm excited about this.
Short of $1.
I'm excited about this. Well, he probably is short of $1 because his pay packet is going to be in shares. He's not actually getting a salary, so he'll be running late on his rent whilst being the world's first trillionaire. This is actually brilliant. I've got a video coming out about this tomorrow. I've dedicated a video to it because I think it actually really is worth that. It's worth diving into and looking at. So firstly, this headline is at least somewhat honest from the ABC News. It's a potential $1 trillion payday, and it is based on performance. What he's agreed to with the Tesla shareholders is that if he increases the company's value by $7 trillion over the next 10 years, then he'll get $1 trillion worth of shares. I'm summarizing. There's more to it. There's more detail in there about the specific milestones and so forth. But fundamentally, if he gives them 7 trillion, they'll give him back 1 trillion. Yeah. Now, when you put it in that context, it's like he will get to keep 15% of the value that he creates over the next 10 years. But that doesn't make him sound like a supervillain. That highlights the fact that actually 85% of the value that he has agreed to try and create over the next 10 years will end up in other people's pockets, making other people rich, or not even necessarily rich, just making their retirement a bit more comfortable, or helping them get started with a nest egg, or whatever it may be, whatever it is that they own shares. But that doesn't make him sound like a supervillain. They want him to sound like a supervillain, so $1 trillion payday. And it's that thing we've talked about before, about how they try and conjure up images like there's dump trucks full of coins just piling cash into a silo for him to go and take a bath every single morning in all of his gold coins. And of course, that's not how any of this works. We're talking about shares. That's where the value is going to be, is in the shares. But we're also talking about a share of the wealth that he's created. And this is such an important point that I don't think we've majored on in the past. If you look at, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, now he's meant to be worth, I think off the top of my head, I think it was 250 billion US dollars. But no, was it? Yeah, 250 billion. But Meta is worth 2.5 trillion, right? So for every dollar that he's made in share value, $9 has been made by other people. So he's made for other people 9 times more than what he's made for himself. In the case of Bezos, I think it's 200 billion is his valuation, is his net worth. 4 trillion is the valuation of Amazon. That's 19 to 1. For every $1 of value that he created and kept, he created $19 of value that is now in somebody else's pocket. And this is to say nothing of all of the economic activity, the payroll, the rent they're paying for all the buildings, all the transport costs, the amount of taxes that they're paying, contributing to the running of the country. And I'm not just talking about corporate tax. People whinge, I don't pay enough corporate tax. Well, fine. But they've paid VAT, they've paid rates, they've paid excises, they've paid payroll taxes, which are a big thing in the US. They've paid land taxes that are a big thing in the US. And all of their employees have had to pay income tax. There's a lot of tax revenue has been generated because these companies exist. So Elon Musk getting paid $1 trillion on the condition that he first makes the shareholders $7 trillion. I think it's a great deal. I think it's a great deal both ways. It makes a lot of sense why 75% of the shareholders voted for it.
You know what I find interesting? The meltdowns around this. None of the lefties ever call out Soros or the Rothschilds. Or who are the other American dynasties? Oh,
goodness. You've got on the right, you've got the Koch brothers. They do get called out all the time because they're on the wrong side of politics. You've got the Rothschilds. You've got the Rockefellers.
That's who I was thinking. Rockefellers.
Oil money. Yeah, oil money. There's a couple of other dynasties made their money in early railway stuff and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And they funnel all that money into foundations, and they do sort of dark money influence operations and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, if you're on the right side of politics, no one ever criticizes you in the media.
No. But meanwhile, JP Morgan, Soros and all those guys, Bill Gates. What I find really interesting is it's not comparable because obviously Bezos doesn't have the wealth, but look at how Bezos seems to sort of slide through. Yes, he does get some criticism every now and then, but nothing like Elon.
Not a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
Elon was, obviously it's his association with Trump. That was the nail in the coffin, but it was the purchase of X. That's when they all went off Elon. And you look at Bezos, right? He's having a 3-day wedding in Venice. He's hired the whole city. He cruises around on his super yacht. Elon doesn't even own a home. He doesn't flash his cash at all. So,
he's not exactly homeless. He doesn't lack for a roof over his head, but yes, he doesn't have the flashy mansions, the yachts, all that stuff.
He's not using it as some kind of Scrooge McDuck where he's swimming in his tower of money. People and to be fair, what's his name? Bloody Facebook guy, Zuckerberg. He's not particularly flashy, although he does own half of Hawaii next to Oprah, and he's bought himself a big compound there.
That feels like it kind of matters, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's a new influencer that's popped up. I think I briefly mentioned her. Her name's Becca Bloom, and she's part of like a Chinese dynasty, Silicon Valley, proper generational wealth, and has built a TikTok off this, right? And amassed like 4 million followers in a couple of months, and she's showing off her crazy wealth, right? Like her insane purchasing, and yet all the lefties are eating her up. I just find the hypocrisy astounding. And the reason I bring this up is we're now in conversations around hyper consumption. Like Gen Z are completely enamored with socialism. Like they are 100% on board with it. And they want that redistribution.
Yes, Gen Z, yes.
Gen Z. They want this redistribution of wealth. They don't believe in billionaires. And so they're starting to eat their own. Like, you know, Taylor Swift recently got attacked for having dared associated in some capacity with someone who may have voted for Trump. And now she's like some kind of gateway into white America and whatever. I can't keep up with all the stories.
To just flip that switch.
Yeah, and then she put out, like, I'm telling you these things because this is how ridiculous it is. She bought out a necklace that had lightning bolts on it, and apparently that was like a dog whistle for the SS. It's crazy.
Yeah, of course. But I totally see that.
This Becca Bloom thing, I'm going to bring this up because I actually think this is really relevant. So Becca Bloom, I don't know what her net worth is, but when I say she's splashing cash, I mean this chick is actually splashing serious cash. Like she'll go to Van Cleef and buy like, you know, $500,000 of jewelry like you and I would go for a coffee. Like this chick is so wealthy that it's insane. And as I said, Gen Z are eating up her comment. They'll make things like, oh, you know, she knows how to rich right. This woman knows how to do it. And because she comes across quite meek and quite cute, right? So this is this chick, 2.8 on YouTube, and like stupid wealth, stupid wealth, right? You know, this outfit's like a $20,000 outfit. Their wedding was like $5 million. Crazy shit.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And what I find so interesting is someone like Becca Bloom can simultaneously have this meteoric rise among Gen Z, whilst Elon, who's literally improving the planet by like giving us EVs, trying to get us to Mars, trying to implement new ways to incorporate AI to like advance humanity. Like that's terrible. But Becca Bloom going and shopping, that's not. I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
No, I think I can explain this. There's an expression about Americans in particular. It is a bit of a uniquely American thing. There is no such thing as a poor American. There are only temporarily embarrassed millionaires, right? So even the poor people in America, they've got their hustle. They're like, no, I'm working on this thing. It's going to go. It's going to be big. It's going to be there. You know, there is this kind of this drive. Now that's not universally true, but it is more true of America than it is anywhere else in the world. So when these mediocre Americans who will never get their break, they will never be rich. They just don't have that X factor, whatever it takes. When they look at people who are rich, they hate people who are rich for reasons that they know they can't match. Elon Musk is a proper genius. He is way more intelligent than I am. He's genius to the point that it borders on insane sometimes, right? But the results speak for themselves. I'm sorry, you can hate on him all you want. The results speak for themselves. And people do try and write it off as luck or as this or as that. No, the results speak for themselves. I'm sorry. Tesla as a company, yeah, okay, he didn't start the company, but it would not be where it is without him. Yes, okay, he's not the rocket engineer in SpaceX, but the company would not be where it is without him, etc. So they look at someone like that and they know that they can never be that. So it's okay to hate him. They look at someone who's famous just for wearing dresses on social media, and they go, "Oh, I could do that. That's my little dream. That's my." You know what? Actually, I just made a connection here. Let me test this as I say it out loud. Do you remember the ads for the what was the company that had George as their mascot? Life could be a dream if George would smile at me. It was one of the lotteries here in Australia.
It was Sales.
It was one of the lotteries. You know. Life could be a dream, shaboom. And what they were literally selling to you was permission to fantasize. So you could sit there in your little mediocre cell, in your little workspace, in this mediocre office with a nondescript nothing job that's leading you absolutely nowhere, hating every minute of your life. But in the back of your brain, you have a little dream, and you paid them for permission to dream. You paid them your $5 that gives you permission to dream that on Thursday night you might be a multimillionaire, right?
Yeah.
And because you bought that, I mean, that is a service that people are willing to pay money for permission to allow themselves to fantasize that their life might be about to change. So in a way, looking at someone who's made it on Instagram, you're like, oh, I could do that. That's believable. That's achievable. Looking at a bloke who starts up a tunnel company just because he loves the Boring Company as a company name and he reckons that tunnels are going to be a big thing in the future. Sorry, I can't do that. I don't have the mental horsepower to be that person. So I put him in the hate category instead. I reckon there's a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, that makes a really good point. I mean, there's so many things that I think it ties into, but as a blanket statement, I think we just don't like seeing people who do better than us. You know, that's an Aussie pastime. I think a lot of it is tall poppy as well. But I think what it also is if you dare to let your imagination run wild and open up your mind to possibilities outside what you currently have accepted or, settled for, there'd be there'd be this real level of discomfort. Because I feel like that. And I think that's simultaneously what propels me and also sends me a little bit crazy at times, because I have this vision for my life and where I want to go, and I have my current skill set, and there's a huge gap between the two. And I'm constantly fighting against myself to try and get there. And then when I actually do get there, it just seems to keep evading me. That horizon keeps moving. I'm in this constant state of tension. And I think for some people, that's really unsettling. And I've noticed this recently, just around the whole AI thing, not to go back onto it, but there seems to be a point in people's lives where they go, that's me done. I've learned everything I should learn. I've achieved what I need to achieve. Now I want to coast. And I don't know, for me, I don't reckon I'd hit that until I'm 102. I think Elon will not hit that until his 7th life on this planet.
Yeah. See, I'm an old soul. I hit that when I was 6. I'm 43 going on 80, man. I'm done. I'm ready to tap out.
No, I don't think so, because you're building this YouTube channel, you're building a media empire. But I don't know what it is about people just going, oh, I don't want to learn. I'm getting off the merry-go-round here. This is boring. I don't want to learn AI. I don't want to change. And I think when you see someone like Elon or someone Zuckerberg, Bezos, any of these people who have created insanely big companies that have changed the way we relate to each other and the way we operate in this world, it becomes uncomfortable. Firstly, to admit that maybe you're not quite there yet, or you don't have that capability. And second, that, maybe you're not contributing as much as you could. I don't know.
But can we also acknowledge that it takes a pathological level of drive and acceptance of discomfort in order to be any of those people? So there's studies were done, and I don't remember the exact number. And in fact, I only remember the number to within probably a couple of tens of millions. So forgive me, I'm not going to get the number right, but the principle stands. There is a point at which your net worth has become high enough that having a larger net worth will not fundamentally change how you live. Now, that threshold, I think, was $12 million US. All right. I think that's what it was. But let's call it 50 million. All right. Once someone gets to $50 million of assets, net worth under management, so that's generating returns for them year on year, having more money than that will not fundamentally change how you live. If you want to spend a few weeks on a super yacht, you can charter a super yacht. If you want to fly around the world on a private jet, you can charter whichever private jet you want. Now, when you go from that level to the Jeff Bezos level, well, you own the super yacht, but you still only spend 2 weeks a year on it. Now you own the private jet, right? But who cares whether you own it or not? I mean, it's going to be kept in pristine condition and ready for you. And yes, sir, yes, ma'am. All the luxury, the experience is the same whether you own it or whether you charter it. So above that threshold, whatever that threshold is, it makes no difference. So the reality for most of us is, if we got to the point where, let's say, life could be a dream if George would smile at me. Let's say, boom, you're on $1 million a year income. What would your response be? Would it be to drive forward and get up early in the morning and hustle and work hard and take risks so that you could turn $1 million a year into $10 million a year? Or would you go, $1 million a year, sweet. I'm going to have nice dinner parties with friends on the weekend. I'm going to travel and see the world. I'm going to sleep in a little bit and right? Which way are you going to go? You're going to go towards comfort. Almost everyone would at $1 million a year. Almost everyone would. There's a lot of people that would at $100,000 a year, right? So you've got to have a pathological drive that says, no, I'm not going to be comfortable. I'm going to choose to be actively uncomfortable for no rational reason in the hope that I can now get to 10 million. And then you do. And then you get to that 50 million threshold. And now going further makes no sense. It doesn't improve your life. It doesn't make a practical difference. The only reason you're going to do that is because it matters for its own sake. There's some other objective that you're trying to achieve. The journey becomes the objective rather than whatever the a vision of what it is that you want to do with your life and what you want to achieve. Elon Musk sitting there saying, I want to become a multiplanetary species. That's the thing that gets him out of bed, right? It's not how much money he's made. And so the reality is most of us check out at some point when we get comfortable enough. Now, most people never even achieve that. But of the people that do, most of us go, okay, yep, I'm good. I'm done. I'm out at this point here. It takes a particular kind of person to be a Zuckerberg or a Bezos or a Musk.
But what I find like crazy about this is Elon's not his first type. Prior to that, we had Einstein. I mean, Einstein didn't amass the wealth that Elon did, but he changed the world. So did Oppenheimer. So did Da Vinci.
Radically different things. I don't think those are comparable at all.
You don't think so? You don't think that these geniuses changed the way that humans live in their time? Like, I don't think you can compare.
No, I would say that if you're talking about Elon Musk, I think you've got to go back to Henry Ford, and before him, you've got to go back to I can't think of the names, the railway magnates that laid out railway lines all over England and all over Europe, and then ultimately all over North America. The industrialists. Elon Musk is an industrialist. He's not. That's a different stream to your artistic or pure scientific geniuses. Elon Musk is applied science. It is science in the real world where it makes a practical difference for the ordinary person.
What about Benjamin Franklin or?
So Franklin was an inventor. He brought many things to life that were practical and useful. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not comparable to Elon catching, like G just said before, catching a supersonic rocket booster in between two chopsticks. It's like
on some chopsticks,
But comparable to the time, like inventing electricity or like inventing the light bulb or like inventing the nuclear bomb, arguably have changed humanity for the better or worse. Depends how you look at it. Someone just said Stephen Hawking, that Graham Bell, Nikola Tesla, Da Vinci. There's a lot of these people, and it's only like posthumously that we look back at them and go, wow, like we're so lucky we had them. I think that'll happen. Some of them
were recognized at the time. Some of them were.
To a degree. But now we sort of look back and go, you can go look at a museum or a art gallery and you see these things, you go, wow. At the moment, Elon is persona non grata because he truly believes that he's taking us not only interplanetary, but he's progressing the human race. And what he has is a whole bunch of either Luddites or political ideologues who are basically like the caboose, and they're trying to keep him where he is. Like, no, you cannot have progress. Simultaneously saying that they want progress. It's very confusing.
Yeah. They are the brakes on the train. Now, can I just say, well, number one, insert username's point here is exactly right. They would not have been able to innovate enough to achieve their success and give us what we have today. That's the crucial sentence. We have what we have today because Benjamin Franklin and the railway magnates and Henry Ford and all these other people became millionaires and billionaires of their day, right, in inflation-adjusted terms. We have what we have, the quality of life that we have because of them. And we wouldn't have it if they hadn't been able to innovate. And if it wasn't for capitalism and the land of opportunity and the free. I wholeheartedly agree. But I want to pick up on this comment by Arthur and Fenchurch. Also, by the way, I love Don't Panic. Well done. Nice little reference there. Franklin also used applied science. Yes, he did. But my biggest regret, and I'm pretty sure it was Franklin. Don't 100% quote me, fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was Franklin. My biggest regret was that his fixing, quite frankly, of the English alphabet never took off. We have a stupid alphabet. It is a bastard child of multiple different languages that were rammed together with relatively little rhyme or reason. The same letter on the page can make different sounds, and some of those sounds overlap with the sounds that can be made by other letters that look different and sometimes sound different, but not always. Sometimes they sound exactly the same. It is completely ridiculous. Benjamin Franklin fixed the English language, and he fixed the alphabet. I can't remember how many letters he had. It was actually less than what we have in our alphabet today. And every single letter made the same sound every single time you saw it on the page. And it never took off. No one adopted it. Everyone went, nah, man, go back to like playing with lightning and stuff. That shit was cool. And as a result, we have the English language of today, which is the bastard love child of I don't know what, but I hate it. There endeth my TED talk.
Fair. To be fair, as a dyslexic, I also hate English.
Our language is dumb.
It is dumb. So a couple more things. I mean, I had some American stuff, but it's probably not worth talking about. But can I just point out something hilarious on this ABC article that I had? So this is the Elon article. This is the level of quality journalism coming from the ABC.
I can't read that.
Okay, I'll read it to you. What is a trillionaire? It's a tricky question because in reality, there hasn't been one before. Musk could be the first if he hits the milestones outlined in the pay deal. Huh? What is a trillionaire?
Firstly, Zimbabwe.
True. The ABC is not good with facts, Topher. Be easy on them.
Yeah.
A trillion is equal to 1,000 billion. That is a number with 12 zeros. Like, is this like journalism for infants? This is embarrassing. The fact that this is in the article. And Tesla operates out in the US dollars. So we're talking about 1 trillion, which would be 1.54 trillion in Australia's. This is the level of journalism, just in case you didn't know how much $1 trillion was. But again, no mention there that this isn't liquid cash.
Yeah, that's right.
This isn't $1 trillion. This is not $1 trillion in his bank account. He doesn't go to the ATM and like print out his statement and go, "Oh, $1 trillion." Like it's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. It just anyway.
You know what's better than being dyslexic, Gary? Is having CDO. It's a lot like having OCD, but it's in alphabetical order. So it is far superior. Far superior. Now listen. I have one more story I want to bring up before we finish tonight, and we are already over time, so I'm going to do this quickly.
Go.
Did you know that around the world, this is a worldwide trend. This is a UK article, but this is a worldwide trend. People are not getting the flu jab. There is alarm among the experts, I will have you know, because the plebeians are not taking their safe and effective flu jabs. Fewer than 1 in 3 under 65s with a long-term health condition have been vaccinated against flu. This is in the UK so far this year, leaving millions of patients at increased risk amid an early surge in flu cases, health officials have warned. Now, what's hilarious to me about this, genuinely... Yeah, no, that was a really good Macaulay Culkin impersonation. I appreciated the art that went into that. This is a preprint. This has not been peer-reviewed yet, but it is still relevant. A preprint study into the effectiveness of the influenza vaccine during the 2024-25 respiratory viral season, a prospective cohort study. I won't go into the details. I am planning a video on this at some point in time when I can get around to it because I've got too many topics and not enough time in my day. The upshot is that they have a very large cohort of people that they have studied. They were all employees at a very large multi-site health service in the US. About 80% of them had the flu vaccine, 20% of them did not. Guess which group had more sick days due to flu? If you guessed the group that was vaccinated, you would be correct. They needed more time off. They contracted more cases of the flu. And this is a study that is large enough to be statistically significant. I think this is a study that is going to shift the needle on this debate considerably, and things like this are the reason why people ain't getting the jab no more.
Well, I can give you my first-hand experience. The only time I had the flu jab, this was, 2013, 14, somewhere back there. For whatever reason, I don't know, it's like someone whipped me up into like you need to go get your flu jab, and I went and got it.
Yeah.
I got the flu. I got influenza A. I have never been that sick in my life. I've had the flu twice. I've had influenza A and B. I had B in 2022, put me in hospital. This A, I was bedridden for 3 weeks. I thought I was dying. And I don't say that to be like hyperbolic. Like, I genuinely thought I was dying. I have never been that sick in my life. I had the flu jab. Within maybe like a week and a half, I was in hospital. Like, honestly, I thought I was dying. That's how sick I was.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever got it again. I was like, obviously now I will never get it. But back then I was young and impressionable.
You know, it's amazing to me. When my oldest was born, I didn't want to get him the full vaccine schedule. I was, you know, I've told the story before. My little sister was nearly killed by the triple antigen when I was a kid. And sorry, not when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when she was a kid. And, you know, what concerned me and my parents more wasn't just the reaction that she had to the triple antigen. It was the reaction that the medical staff had to any suggestion that the triple antigen might have been involved. It was just dismissed. It was derided out of hand. And that was the first real warning sign that we'd had as a family. I'm talking a solid 30 years ago, 29 years ago. That was the first real warning that we had as a family that maybe all these officials and experts and statistics aren't quite what they're cracked up to be. So I was already a little bit skeptical. But what I was planning to do originally with my son, my oldest, was to put him on something approximating the Japanese schedule, which they tend to delay for longer. They don't do as many. They do them older, and they do them separately rather than in these sort of multiple batches. And so I thought, okay, you know what, I'm a bit more comfortable with that. That felt like a sort of a safe halfway kind of thing. But I never ended up doing that with him, because ultimately the more time passed, the more I went, hold on, the more I see, the less comfortable I am with this. And one of the things that happened was actually the midwife that came and saw us in the home a few weeks after we took Winston home asked us, oh, you know, have you had this vaccination, blah, blah, blah. And I told her the story of what happened to my sister. And I said, look, we're thinking of doing the Japanese thing. And then she responded by telling us, and my wife will corroborate this, that she lost one of her daughters in an adverse reaction to a jab. Wow. Fatal. And yet here she was having to sit there and encourage people to get them, because that was her job. And it was part of, you know, if she didn't do that, then she wouldn't be doing her job properly and she could lose her job. And that was, you know, that was one of many things now that have happened, obviously, since all the COVID stuff and everything else. There's no way I'm letting anyone near any of my kids with any of those needles. And we've got a situation now where we're having to figure out, you know, some childcare options for my youngest. And, you know, not that we want her in childcare a lot, but we just need that from time to time. And you sit there and go, well, most of these places are closed. Like, no jab, no play is a thing. They will not let you in unless you can bring the paperwork to show that you've turned your kid into a pincushion. It's extraordinary. And the self-righteousness, the aggressiveness with which this stuff is enforced by the staff at these places there's nothing else quite like it. This vaccine issue brings a level of, not malevolence, because then they don't mean to be harmful, but the certainty that the proponents have about not just that they're right medically, but that they're right morally is astonishing. And you know, from my point of view, the collapse of all of this can't come soon enough. I'm thrilled with what's happening in the US with RFK Jr. I'm thrilled with what's happening in studies like the one that I just showed you on the screen there. I'll keep reporting on them on my channel. The end of this can't come soon enough. And I have to wonder, how bad is it? Because we don't know. The statistics don't capture how bad is it with adverse reactions and everything else. Is this going to be the next generation's thalidomide? We look back and say, how could they possibly have done that? How could they have known? How could they have not known? How could they have allowed it for so many years after they knew? Is this exactly what our grandkids are going to be saying about us?
But we had a version of this, like in the 2000s with the opioid crisis.
Oh, yes,
the
very much.
Was it the Sackler family? Sorry, Sackler?
Yeah. What was the drug?
Oxycontin.
Oxycontin. Yeah,
Oxycodone.
yeah. That's right.
Which is essentially heroin, or it's a byproduct of
It's
heroin,
not
right?
heroin. It's my best
Oh,
friend.
it's the same shit.
I
Anyway,
love it.
I actually get really ill when I have endone, which is the same thing. Endone,
Yeah,
Oxycontin, same thing. And that's led to the opioid crisis. But every time the government gets involved with anything to do with health, we get sicker. How are we sicker today than we were 100 years ago? I mean, we've seen some obviously genuine advancements like penicillin, antibiotics, and things like that.
Yep.
But nowadays, when you get sick, you don't just get a sniffle. It's always something like super extreme. And I think I've talked about this, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole because it's a big one. But I've spent the last 10 years trying to heal something that I still don't know what it is. Like it's autoimmune. My hair fell out, my gut was destroyed, and I actually think this is when I was on, is it SSRIs? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I was on
the serotonin receptor inhibitors. What are that's called? The reuptake inhibitors. Sorry. Yeah.
I was on my entire adolescence. I was on Zoloft because the doctor said that I needed it, and all I was mercilessly bullied. I'm not going to go into this whole story, but I was on them for almost 7 or 8 years, and one day I just stopped. Right, so you got to imagine a teenager, all those hormones, like everything changing. Like it's not a fun experience. We've all been there. None of us liked it. My doctor told my parents I need to be on those at 14. And I came off them, I don't know, like early 20s or something. And I just stopped cold turkey, and it messed me up. Ever since then, I've had issues with my gut. Like, not to overshare, but like there has been serious things wrong with my body that I just cannot explain, that I can't figure out. And I have gone on so many journeys down alternative medicine. I've gone through Western medicine. I have to believe that we are doing things to our body that is changing our biology for the worse because it makes us profitable. Because I think about what I have spent on that journey, like as it is now, not to overshare, but I take a pill every single day so my hair doesn't fall out. And it's $80 a month, right?
Wow.
If I don't take that pill, my hair falls out. No one can tell me why my hair falls out, but I end up like actually going bald. I don't have alopecia. I don't have anything wrong with me, but for whatever reason, my immune system's going, the hair's bad, kick it out.
Yeah, wow.
I think there is something so egregious and so evil that has happened in the Western medical system. Big pharma, whatever, put your tinfoil hat on. That, don't get me wrong, there are definitely things that we need the Western health system for. Absolutely. If I snap my leg, I'm definitely going to the Alfred. Like if I've got influenza, I'm going straight to ED, right? But there are things where we have done cautionary things that have actually made us sicker and keep us on a system. And I'm going to say something, and I'm going to upset you. You talk about activating people's almonds. I'm going to say
Are we going to get cancelled?
ADHD and anxiety in these kids is by design. You will not change my mind. You will not change my mind. Putting kids on Ritalin or whatever the fuck they get, Adderall, I don't know what they get in Australia, Dexies or whatever, I don't know. This is by design. Same with the trans shit. Get them hooked on drugs, anything that they can be stuck on for their life. You will not change my mind.
Look, you're probably not wrong. I think we should break medicine down into 3 very distinct categories. There is trauma care, car crash, snapped a leg, that stuff. I think that's amazing. Modern technology in trauma care borders on the miraculous. And I think the reason for that is because we can measure the results very directly. You do something, you see the result. The person doesn't die, the person dies. We can iterate and figure it out real quick what's going on. And modern medicine in trauma care, amazing. I wouldn't want to live without it. I can't. The idea that you could die of an infection from being grazed by a thorn on a rose bush. That's literally like, there are people that have died from gardening accidents being just a grazing on their skin because it got infected and that ran away and that was it. They were done. So that stuff, amazing. The second category is essentially disease care. And we're not very good at this. This is the long-term stuff. This is the lifestyle related stuff. And what we're doing is we're trying to turn off the warning lights. We use tablets to change the symptoms rather than actually dealing with the root causes. I could talk a long time about that stuff, but I'm not going to. There's a third category that we're even worse at, and that's mental health. The mental health side of things, I think we have worse than no idea. I think most of what we're doing is actually having the opposite effect. I think that brain health and gut health are intrinsically related. I think that brain health is also oftentimes a spiritual thing. And I don't mean necessarily like a demon possession, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if you don't have purpose and a sense of belonging and a why, and you're the kind of person who thinks deeply, that's going to fuck with you, right?
Yeah.
You're going to end up in a really bad place mentally if you don't have your spiritual life sorted out. Not to mention then, the way we mess with just all kinds of drugs and oh, you're feeling sad, try this drug. Oh, you feel tired in the afternoons. How about let's try another drug? And we have less than no idea what we're doing when it comes to mental health. We have some idea when it comes to disease care, although I would say still really bad. And just witness what's happening now is the slow waking up of the realization that actually dementia is probably type 4 diabetes.
Yeah.
Right. Or type 3 diabetes. Like dementia is actually probably, and putting people onto a low cholesterol diet is probably one of the main triggers for the current dementia epidemic that we have, because the brain is made up mostly of cholesterol. That is the main building block. That white stuff that is your brain, that's cholesterol. Like we don't understand what we're messing with so much of the time here. So trauma care, yes, fantastic, amazing. Wouldn't want to have to live without it. Disease care, I'd want to do a lot of my own research. Mental health, I reckon stay away from the mainstream.
Yeah.
I
can attest to that.
Really tread carefully.
I'm not going to tell the full story. I think I've mentioned it briefly on the podcast, but I also feel a bit weird talking about this because I don't want to get in trouble. But long story short, the SSRIs, lots of trauma in my adolescence, right? And it also stems from stuff that happened when I was a child. I had to somehow deal with this, and a dear friend of mine introduced me to psilocybin microdosing, and then also doing, God, how do I say this? Journey teas to help deal with this stuff. Yeah. It is the only thing that has made me feel better. It is the only thing. I've done it a handful of times. I'm not taking microdosing every day. Yeah. That somehow helped me get over whatever that barrier was. And it was done in a way that was super connected to earth, I guess you could say, right? It was not medical. It was totally spiritual. And what I mean by this is it's plant medicine, if you guys aren't picking up what I'm putting down. And it was from the plant itself. It wasn't a synthesized version. And what I've since found out is that Big Pharma understands that psilocybin has a huge impact on PTSD and mental health. And they are trying to synthesize it so they can patent it and then prescribe it and make billions of dollars. There is something about this that I find purely evil. And I'm not the right person to talk about this because my knowledge of it is quite limited, but my gorgeous friends are experts in this. Psilocybin is found in so many plants across the world. It is everywhere. And God put it there, right? It didn't just that's not a human intervention.
I agree.
God put it there. And God left it there for us to find when we needed it. And people will talk about this all the time, that you'll get called towards it. And whether it's ayahuasca, DMT, whatever it is, right? Anyone that's watched a Joe Rogan episode knows what I'm talking about. And I was listening to Rogan for years, right, before I got curious about this. It was only because my dear friend started talking to me, and I was like, all right, I actually feel safe around you to have this conversation. I'm so anti-drugs. It's not funny. And the more I learned about it, the more it sort of unlocked my parts of my subconscious, and I sort of dealt with things and unpacked what all this trauma was. And the more I realized I had spent, my parents had me in therapy for years to talk about my feelings. And I would sit there and I could run rings around the psychologist. It was embarrassing. And I would say whatever they wanted me to say just so I could hurry up and get out of the bloody appointment. It did nothing. And not to say that there aren't some good psychologists, but for the most part.
Not that it can't do something, but in your case, it didn't.
there is something so wrong and so evil about the way the medical system works now. And I see this all the time with people who go, I look at peer-reviewed studies, I look at the research. I'm like, no, you look at the research funded by people who want you to see it the way that you do. Like, this is none of this is objective, you know, and it's evil.
So the movie Fight Club, like, go back and watch it. And instead of watching it for the Fight Club, watch it for the dude's job and realize that that's a real thing, right? There are fixers that fly around the world representing whether it's car companies or pharmaceutical companies. Their job is to make problems go away. Their job is to identify problems and make recommendations to the company as to the most cost-effective way to fix that problem. And it's not always taking responsibility and doing the right thing and coming clean. Usually it involves some hush money to the victims that they have to pay money to so that they never have to admit liability, so that they can deny anything to a whole bunch of other victims that are in a different category and they can kind of hold them at bay. Yeah. So we have entire industries. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is the biggest criminal cartel in history. And I can say that without fear of being sued because it's on the record. The pharmaceutical companies, I believe it's 9 out of the top 10 most fined companies in the world are pharmaceuticals in terms of criminal financial liability because they've engaged in criminal behavior. Now, in the case of pharmaceutical companies, mostly it's misrepresenting the safety or efficacy of their drugs, or failing to notify regulators and withdraw products from markets once they become aware that they're actually dangerous. These are criminal cartels and they are making a fortune. And if you watch Fight Club and you realize that guy's job was a real thing, like, sure, the movie's fake, but that job, that exists. And it exists in the pharmaceutical world as well. And these people fly around figuring out, okay, do we just pay these people off, make this go away quietly, put a gag order on them, you know, give them, wave enough money in their eyes that they go, ooh, we want the money. And they sign the gag order and they can never tell anybody anything. Do we do that knowing that other people are also going to have the same hell that these people are going through? And that's usually what they'll do. They'll use a bit of money.
All I can think of is, do you remember the movie Erin Brockovich? That was a true story, by the way. It wasn't just a Hollywood fantasy. And it was basically chromium was leaking into the town's water supply, a small town from, I can't remember what the plant was. It was some plant. I don't know. Was it like a industrial complex? Can't remember. But chromium.
I don't remember. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a real story. Chromium was coming into the town's water supply and poisoning the kids, and they're all getting cancer, horrific cancer, not just like little cancers, like cancer of the throat, cancer of the lymph, like whatever, bone cancer. And they laughed, and a P&G gas compressor plant, thank you, Pro Engineer, and basically Erin Brockovich, who's a mother, she's not a lawyer, she started to piece things together and question and scratch beneath the surface. And PG&E came to the table and said that they would pay $100,000 to this family, basically hush money. And they did it in a way that they knew the family would take it. And in the end, I can't remember what the settlement was, but it was some obscene amount of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
That happens every day. That's happening everywhere. They're deliberately trying to sweep things under the rug so you shut up. And like, and this is just my personal experience. I felt like I was crazy. I knew there was something wrong with me. I still don't know what it is. I don't know what the causation is or like what the actual problem is. But like, I'd go to doctors and I'd be like, this is the problem. And they're like, you're fine. Everything's perfectly fine. I'm like, it's not fine. Stop fucking gaslighting me. My hair's falling out of my head, you know? And I hear stories like this all the time. I think it's evil. I don't know when it collapses or how, but maybe the vaccine thing is the catalyst. I don't know.
This is the thing. A lot more people, it's what you said earlier in the show. A lot more people are just going, you know what? Nah. They're not doing it aggressively. They're not burning down Parliament House or anything like that. But they're just like, you know what? No, I'm out. I'm done. They're not taking jabs. They're not falling for the BS. They're not saying the thing that they're supposed to say now or changing the pronouns or all that stuff. A lot of people just like, you know what? I'm actually done here. I just want to get on with my life. And that has the effect of causing it. It doesn't reveal the evil, but it has the effect of causing the evil to no longer be effective. And then they start to up their ante. And we saw this during COVID. Like, they really made themselves obvious because they overreached so hard. We're watching it happen again with Keir Starmer in the UK, trying to ram through the digital ID. He's overreaching too hard because he knows that the next election is going to be bad for him. he's got a timeline to work with because people are tuning out. People are walking away. People are going and supporting, in his particular case, in the case of UK politics, they're supporting reform. But this is happening worldwide. People are just like, nah, you know what? I'm kind of done here. And what that changes is it means that the wokies and the people that want to rule the world, they're on the clock now. They thought that history was going in their direction, and they would just keep plodding along effortlessly towards total control and domination of the world through digital currency, digital ID, and carbon quotas. That was the idea. Now, all of a sudden, they're realizing if they don't get it done in the next 3 to 5 years, they won't get it done. The world is changing. The world is moving against them, and we can thank Trump for a lot of that. And so now they're overplaying their hand, and they're getting really obvious in what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I'm optimistic, as I say it over and over again, but I need to say it over and over again because there's a lot of people out there selling doom and gloom. I'm actually really optimistic about the future. The lies are crumbling in so many areas, whether it's vaccines or climate change, the whole COVID narrative, but also digital ID. The pushback on all of that is fantastic. Watching the Blade Runners in the UK and what's going on in the UK with the protests and what's happening up in Scotland, like there's so much good stuff happening all over the world. I really think we are in this collision between the people that thought they were going to rule the world and we, the people, just going, no, that's not going to happen. And the next 3 to 5 years is going to be intense. It's going to be pretty crazy. And we better hope that the next US president is JD Vance or Marco Rubio or someone of that caliber. Because if it reverts, if it flicks back to a Democrat, we're in trouble. Like this is by no means am I saying that us winning is a done deal. But I am saying that this collision is a good thing. It needed to happen. I am very, very optimistic for the future.
Yeah, I won't go into it now. We're going to talk about the story on Wednesday. But have you seen what's unfolded recently with Sydney Sweeney?
No, I know that she's been back in the news, but I don't know why.
So basically, or maybe we'll end on this because I know we've gone over time. But so this is, and the reason I bring this up is because now it's safe to push back. Now it's not necessarily like in our favor yet. But a lot of people, like I talked about this last week, Jennifer Lawrence. I'm not saying she's coming to our side, certainly not. But she's made peace with the fact that actually no one cares about her political opinions. Actually, no one cares at all. And she said, oh, well, it's not having no impact, so I'm not going to waste my time talking about it. And then the other one, what's her name? Rachel Zegler went the opposite direction and said, oh, as an actress, I should have a platform, right?
Yeah. I have this responsibility.
Yeah. So Sydney Sweeney, obviously, she's the girl that was in the jeans ad recently, American Eagle. And I think she's having a great time. Like, I feel like she's really sort of found her feet. She wore a dress to some award ceremony that basically just had her boobs out everywhere and sent the internet wild. And I think the feminists honestly hate her because she's pretty. Like, that's it. Like, because she's
because she's not one of them.
And she's not one of them. But she's a traditionally attractive woman. She's blonde, big boobs, men love it, right? Like, say no more. But anyway, so this interview went live recently. So this is a female journalist interviewing her. And the female journalist works for GQ, which is a men's fashion magazine, right? And I'm going to play just this very little clip. Like, you just need to watch this journalist. She can't make eye contact, and she keeps trying to get the got ya. So I'm going to play this very quickly.
Everybody prepare
the criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe.
Yeah.
How's the facial expressions? Maybe you like want to say something.
Yeah. I'm doing you a favor here. You should really follow my lead here. You really need, there's some things you need to say here. I'm being so nice to you and giving you the opportunity.
I'm leading you down.
Yeah.
What's that face? What is that face that they pull? Like, do you remember I showed you that, this is ages ago, that interview with Meghan Markle and that insufferable podcast host, and she's like,
vaguely. I think that was another thing I've blocked out with my trauma counseling.
So go.
So It used to be that we had gatekeepers who could decide whose career flourished and whose career died. That world disappeared with the advent of the internet, or more specifically with the advent of social media on the internet. That world is gone now. We don't have gatekeepers between us and every single person. Yes, there are still gatekeepers in industries. There are still people with a lot of influence and power, but they are no longer universal. You can't cancel somebody anymore, not the way that used to be possible. So someone like a Sydney Sweeney and all of the outrage around her, all she's doing is leveraging what the left have outraged for a long time. I remember Machine Gun Fellatio, the band. I remember it was 90s or 2000s, probably 2000s. They were coming to Australia and there was outrage. All the Christian groups got up in arms. Oh, this band is terrible. And even just the name is horrible and blah, blah, blah. And, I was I am, a Christian and church going man and all the rest of it. And so I'm watching all these people get outraged. And even back then, this is before I was really political in any way, I'm going, guys, if you just shut up about it, there'd be a lot less free advertising for this band that's coming and playing at the universities, right? Even back then, the outrage didn't work. The band came over and they did their thing and they had a very successful tour, probably partly helped by all the free advertising they were given by all these outraged parishioners and pearl-clutching prayer warriors. That reality has only become stronger since. Outrage is advertising. This is one of the things that I've never been willing to tap into. I'm not willing to be the guy that goes and makes people angry for the sake of it. People accuse me of, oh, you just say that for effect. No, I don't. I say things because I actually think they're true. I would be a lot bigger. I would have a much bigger audience if I was cynical enough to just say things for effect, because it works. And someone like Sydney Sweeney, she doesn't have to say things for effect. They're already so angry at her. It doesn't matter what she says, they're going to be outraged by it. So she is just going to enjoy it. Look, it will wane over time, but she's probably got another 3, 4, 5 years ahead of her of just relentless free advertising, where pretty much nothing that she does will fail to outrage all the right people. And her name and her face will just keep being pushed out by these people being just ever so upset at her. They cannot cancel her.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. But what I'm really buoyed to see is how confident some people are now coming out. Like she didn't even need to say anything. She said, I think that when I have something to say, people hear it. Like, that's basically like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she says it in a way that's so typical, like cavalier, like Hollywood celebrity. Yeah. Really, it's masterclass. It really is.
But also, what I noticed with that clip, her response did not mirror the smarm. She didn't have the condescension. She was firm. She was direct. It was confrontational. She knew that she was not telling this person what they wanted to hear, but it wasn't loaded with all of the smugness and the superiority that you get out of a lot of Hollywood celebrities. She is someone who is remarkably comfortable in her own skin. And I say remarkably, that's a value judgment, and I'm in no place to judge, but that's a value judgment based on two things. She's young, right? She's and she's very pretty, which both for men and women who are unusually pretty, they often end up insecure because people are very attracted to them and want their attention and shower gifts on them and all the rest of it. But it's all surface level. It's all because they're pretty and they know it. And so very pretty people can often end up being sort of uncomfortable in their own skin. For her to be very pretty and very young and very comfortable in her own skin, happy to sit there and have that conversation without getting angry or triggered, but also without the condescension, the smarm, the that you get from Hollywood, is really impressive, really impressive. Yeah. And if she plays her cards right, she will end up being an absolute global juggernaut for all the right reasons.
I think so too. And I'm seeing this a lot, like just even that interaction I told you guys at the beginning of the podcast about the crazy lefty who was trying to tell me to do my research and stuff. Yeah. The more we hold our ground, and it's not necessarily like, it's not civil war in the sense that like grab your bayonet and your pitchfork, right? It's more like it's just stand your ground. They're going to get in your face and scream. Like we've seen all those crazy clips of all the wokies like, gluing shit to the wall and whatever. They're carrying on. The answer to that is to just stand there and go, sorry, could you, what was that? I didn't quite get it the first time. Like just push back, and they can't handle it. That's all it takes. That's a silent rebellion,
Make these people explain themselves, because when they hear the sound of their own voice, they start to realize just how insane they really actually are. However, speaking of insane, it is 2 hours and 45 minutes in, and this is meant to be our short Monday Night Live, just a little taste and teaser to get everyone excited for the Wednesday night. And this is pushing towards full episode length, so we do need to call it.
Yeah, we do. And I've got a cup of tea waiting for me and a Tim Tam downstairs, don't I, G?
Is that your nickname for it? I was wondering what you called it. Okay.
No, genuinely. I wait until the end of the day to have my tea and my Tim Tam. It's my favorite part of the day. Let me have something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Tim Tam. Yeah.
Bit of housekeeping. Ko-fi, if you guys want to sign up, support the channel, all that sort of stuff, thank you. Merch, Good People Break Bad Laws. And thank you. Well done. Excellent. And also, we are organising our first live event. Now, I know there's a huge handful of you that don't want to come to Melbourne. Don't blame you. But for those of you who can get to Melbourne, I have been looking at venues, and it looks like it will be somewhere southeast. Couple of things. We need to know how many of you guys are actually going to come, because that will vastly impact the venue that we choose. So
I'm thinking 200. I'm thinking there's going to be 200. I mean, we've got 1,200 people watching us right now. Plus, there's other people that love the show that won't be watching us right now on the Monday night. I reckon we can get 200 people in a room, but Carly's skeptical. So, guys,
I am a bit. I'm very conservative.
Yeah, no, she's like, I reckon you might get 6 people, 7 if your mum comes along.
I'm
honestly,
always terrified to be that 7-year-old kid who's at his birthday party and no one shows up.
Okay. So we're getting some great suggestions. First of all, I'll come down to Melbourne for that. For the says pro engineer, fantastic. Now, here's the thing: we can't please everybody. City would be better. Well, unfortunately, the venues in the city actually kind of suck for our purposes.
And they're so expensive.
Oh, yeah. So expensive. So, I'm sorry. It's not going to be city. It just isn't. Parking sucks. The venues suck. The prices suck. It's not going to be good. It'll be an open bar that you pay for yourself, which is not an open bar. Then A-Chi says, me if it's not a weekend. We had a big argument. Carly and I had our first fight. We had our first. I'm sorry to say we had our first fight.
That's why Topher has so much makeup on. He's covering up his black eye.
Covering the bruising. Oh, mate, you want to see bruising? No, you don't want to see that. I got a massage done the other day. There's a really great masseuse, Daniel, if you're watching, hi, up in my area, and he left me with a dick and balls on my back. I had bruising from cupping, and then he got another cup.
You up.
And he put suction into the cup, and then he was rubbing it up and down this area of my back that was really, really bound up.
It worked, Daniel. He stitched you up.
I've got a dick and balls on my. I've got 2 cups, and I'm sure he did it. He did it. He did it on purpose. I'm sure. Anyway, I don't know why I got there. All I was saying was we had a big argument about whether or not to do this on the Wednesday night, so it would be at a normal time. We would stream as normal. Or to do it maybe as like a Saturday matinee, like a 2 p.m. early afternoon thing. Which one's going to be better? I said Wednesday. Carly said weekend. H-E, you're on my side, obviously, but I don't know. I think maybe I'm going to lose that one.
Yeah, I think weekends just easier for people who have kids, and it's going to be January, the weekend of the 10th, 11th, somewhere there that weekend.
It's the weekend.
I will say this, guys, just so you know, like I have been putting in the research for this, because some of the inner city venues, they have a minimum spend. So if you want to hire the venue, they expect you to spend a certain amount of money. And a lot of the city venues are $10,000 minimum spend. I'm like, bloody hell. Like, I know you guys are alcoholics, but that's a lot of drinks.
We would have to spend a lot of time talking about Venezuela, Tolkien, and your masters to be able to get that much money over the bar.
Yeah, so we're looking for somewhere where, and also something else to consider, and this is something I was trying to educate Topher on before, is that given the topics we're likely to discuss, we need to go somewhere that won't necessarily be offended by political chats, and we need to be mindful of the staff, particularly if they're young. So, you got to be careful. We've got to be careful.
Yeah, It's probably not going to be a young kid friendly event either. We're probably going to have to draw the line at like 13 years of age.
Yeah.
Because you just know that Carly's going to drop an F-bomb or two.
You're the one that drops the C-bomb. Why is it always blaming me?
Because it's more fun that way. And we do talk about serious stuff like, mental health comes up and other things like that. So this isn't going to be the kind of event where we're going to be saying, hey, bring the whole family. It is going to be, older teenagers, middle to older teenagers and upwards at parents' discretion really would be it. But it's going to be a fun day. We agreed that I'm going to do some stand-up comedy. So that's going to be great. I've got some plans. I had a little routine going already. I've been thinking more about that recently. So that's going to be awesome. 5 minutes of poking your eyeballs out with forks. That's going to be great.
Can I be Red Simons and just like write my score and like?
Yeah, you can do that. All right.
Yeah, so keep that in mind, guys. We'd love you to come there. But yeah, we've been looking at venues. It comes down to how many people we can fit, what the minimum spend is. And I keep thinking about proximity. So we want it to be close to a train station. So at least there's public transport. We're thinking of you having to get home. So we're not trying to make it at nighttime so that you have to travel home like when you're drunk. That would be silly. So we've got a couple of locations that are along the train line coming down from the city. So either Frankston line or Sandringham line. We're sort of looking around there. We're looking. And if you know a venue that would like to host us, let me know.
Ideally with room for about 200 people and a bar in the room. I don't want people to have to walk out of the room to go and get a drink, right? I want a bar in the room, 200 people, room for a little platform with a little podcasting desk and some speakers so everyone can hear us. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. It's not hard.
It'll probably be the weekend of the 10th, 11th of January, somewhere there.
Somewhere there. Now,
Gary just suggested the Chelsea Hotel, which, by the way, we were looking at because it's right on the water and it looks nice. So I don't know if anyone's got any connections. If you know people, hook me up.
Know people who know people. Insert username. All of Victoria is now worse than Frankston was when I was a kid. You can't rag on Frankston anymore. I'm sorry. The whole state is Franger. Okay?
I think Port Melbourne is Franger now.
Franger won.
Port Melbourne is worse than Frankston now, which is interesting. Yeah.
All right. Cool. We got to wind up. We got to finish it.
Housekeeping, because someone said how much? $10. $10.
Yeah. No, it's going to be like a nominal entry fee. We're not trying to make money off the entry fee. We just want to cover costs. That's all.
Yeah.
We will have merch. I'll have my books there. Carly might have some copies of her books there, but who wants those? I mean, honestly, just come over to my table and buy from me. That's fine. So there'll be the opportunity to support the Oddcast in those ways if you'd like to. But no, we want it to be just really nominal entry fee. $10 gets you in the door. Buy your own drinks. Buy your own food over the bar. A good 3 hour, maybe 3.5 hour podcast, having fun, kicking back, having a good laugh, and just the chance to be in the same room as other like-minded people.
Yeah, and you guys, can mingle and talk to each other because it's nice to be around other people who are not sane. Anyway, that's all right. That's it.
We're getting out of here. We will see you on Wednesday for the main podcast. Make sure that you are following at the Oddcast HQ on YouTube. That's the only place that you will find our main weekly show. So if you're watching on my Facebook page, my X page, or on my YouTube channel, the Topher Field one, thank you. I appreciate you watching there. Make sure you've subscribed to at the Oddcast HQ so that you don't miss the main show on Wednesday. Bye.
Oh, hang on, you might get to meet our resident Stig.
So is this our draw card? Is this our draw card? If you come along to the birthday, you'll be traumatized by seeing G's face.
Yeah. You guys he is real. I wanted him to be the Dr. Claw and just like reach over and just show his hand and stuff. But yeah, anyway.
Bowls Club. Some people are saying Bowls Club. That's interesting.
I'm looking, guys. I'm definitely looking. So I've been hunting for venues for the last weekend. A lot of these places don't have sit-down venues bigger than 100 people. So that's what we're looking at. It has to be sit-down of over 150 people.
Yeah. Love you too, Nate the Toucher. That's a sentence I never expected to say in my life. See you later, everybody. We're out of here. Bye.